Well, the top of the morning, a happy Sunday to one and all. I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A very big 4 hours for you. Thousands of people marched in the capital yesterday. How many was it? Well, establishment media say 100,000, some say 150, some say approaching 1 million. Who cares? An enormous number of people. Do you want to know how many arrests? Christian, how many arrests was it? 25 arrests. 150,000 people. Isn't that a lower statistic of arrests than an Oasis concert? Certainly the Notting Hill Carnival. So here's a question for you. Notwithstanding how many people attended and controversy around Tommy Robinson that we'll get into, some people love him, some people think he's a dangerous thug. We'll have that conversation. But with that few arrests and that many people marching for their country, was this the quiet expression of people power? And will the establishment listen? Things are getting worse for Sir Keir Starmer. He should not read the Sunday papers today. We'll, of course, bring you full reaction to the Sunday papers. Absolutely chock full of big stories, the majority of which are terrible news for this government. It's been revealed that Sir Keir Starmer hired Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to the United States without doing the due diligence. By the way, we were told Keir Starmer was an excellent lawyer with attention to detail. What is not across his brief, because it looks like he rubber-stamped the hiring of Peter Mandelson without having full details. It raises significant doubts about the Prime Minister's competence, and judgment will get reaction. Bad news for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. Her plan to raise taxes will cost more than they actually raise, how much they bring into the Treasury. This according to the world's leading economic expert. So just how broke is Britain? And front page of the Daily Express, Reeves now Chancellor in name only. Is Starmer going to have to get rid of his first woman Chancellor in order to shore up the economy and save his premiership? And the first Channel migrants said to be deported on flights as early as tomorrow under the Sir Keir Starmer one-in, one-out deal with France. Will it work? Is this a turning point in the battle against illegal immigration, or yet another false dawn? Plus, folks, the monologue is back. We're going to talk about legal and illegal immigration, why it's a problem in this country, and why so many people want their country back. That is today's Dolan Dispatch at 8 a.m. I'm not pulling my punches. That is appointment to listen, appointment to view. That is the Dolan Dispatch, why Brits want their country back at 8 a.m. Now, your opinions are my priority on this show, so book your place on the programme, 0344 499 1000. Davis is today's vision mixer, making me look terribly handsome. Engineer Dave is pressing the buttons. And let me tell you, this guy could be in charge of the Large Hadron Collider. That is how much of a scientist he is. That man knows how to hit a sting, let me tell you. And then we have the Colossus, the broadcasting and journalistic Colossus. There's producer Christian, who's worked with some of the biggest names. He's not worked with me enough, and let me tell you, it's going to be an education for him. It's a career highlight. This will be going on his CV. I work with Dolan. And taking your calls all morning is the brilliant Tommy, working his socks off today. 0344 499 1000. What matters to you matters to me, and what's on your mind is my big priority. We'll catch up. We've got lots to get through. A big 4 hours. Send me a text as well. Let's talk. And with me in the studio for the first hour of the show to look at tomorrow's front pages and react to the big stories of the day is the supremely talented political commentator Will Kingston. Top of the morning, Will.
Morning, Mark. It is early, but I am energised by the images that we've seen from that rally yesterday. So many decent, hard-working, patriotic English men and women who want to reclaim their country.
Are they far right?
No, of course they're not. Of course they're not. And this will be a real challenge for Labor, for Keir Starmer if he's still around. because people have had enough of this sort of far-right moniker. The overwhelming majority of people at that march yesterday were good, decent, normal people. The far-right slur doesn't work anymore. The racist slur doesn't work anymore. And it will only be counterproductive for Labor and for much of the establishment media to try and paint this as anything else than what it was, which was a collection of overwhelmingly decent people.
Most definitely. I mean, I'm looking at the stats. Now, there were arrests, which is a disgrace, okay, to attack police, to try to get to one street rather than another because there's a counter-protest. I thought the police did a brilliant job yesterday. I thought they were very fair, very even-handed. So the arrests are wrong, but can we just look at the proportionality of this? 25 arrests, okay? Now, that number may grow, but at the moment, yesterday it was 9 arrests, okay? Now, I live in a very sketchy part of North London. Now, I can tell you there are more than 9 arrests, per hour where I live, just in normal sort of civil life. So 25 arrests for 150,000 people is demonstrably a peaceful protest.
Yeah, it is. It would be statistically impossible for there not to be arrests at a gathering of hundreds of thousands of people.
Drinking beer.
Exactly. But I didn't hear much evidence that there was, football hooliganism-esque behaviour. The things which I don't think get said enough is the counter-protest that turned up yesterday, the stand-up to racism protest, often come with the explicit goal of needling people into some sort of confrontation. I would also suggest that the police are looking very hard to try and make an example of particular people. So if you put all those factors together, the fact that there were such a small number of arrests highlights that this was overwhelmingly a really well-run and a really peaceful and harmonious group of people.
Well, definitely. I mean, Christian, if you get a chance, let's check out the stats on how many people attended this year's Notting Hill Carnival and how many were arrested. Now, I approve of the Notting Hill Carnival. I'm a Londoner. It's a great event. But there are an enormous number of arrests, and all of the locals have to board up their homes and windows and all the rest of it in order to protect their property. And in fact, I was on a flight the other day with someone who lives close to where the Notting Hill Carnival happens. He doesn't just have to board up his windows, he needs a special wooden structure for his front garden so that people don't urinate at the front of his house. So, this is, and if that was happening yesterday, The Guardian and the BBC and Sky News would have been all over that like a rash. Was a palpable sense on the part of establishment media of disappointment that there weren't riots?
Well, look, they still tried, and I've just been glancing at the headlines this morning, and the first thing that all of the papers are, descending into violence, I think was a term that I saw in one of the papers. Interestingly, they've really picked up on Musk's intervention into the event. They know that he's not as popular in the UK, so they were very quick to try and brand this as a Musk-led or a Musk-associated rally.
Yeah.
Mark, the question that I have for you is, this was a wonderful event in my opinion. Do you actually think it will lead to any sort of tangible policy change on the part of this government?
This government, no. And the reason why is Sir Keir Starmer has no principles, and therefore, if he had full autonomy over his party and this administration, I think he would pivot. I really do. Because Keir Starmer is a guy that pretended to be a Corbynite in order to become leader of the Labour Party. He said he was going to renationalise everything, he was going to axe the House of Lords, and he was going to give every poor person £1 million and free beer on a Wednesday. So that was his policy platform to become leader. He ditched that within seconds of becoming leader and pushed himself into the centre ground.
Yep.
And we know that he's had more U-turns than Lewis Hamilton. So the guy is happy to turn on a dime.
Yeah.
The issue is, and I think he would shift majorly to the right on immigration. I think that he would even potentially tear up the ECHR. The reason being that, yes, he's a woke lawyer by trade, but this guy exists to be in power. He's famously ruthless and incredibly driven. And I will say that he achieved his ambition of becoming Prime Minister, and now his ambition is to remain Prime Minister. The problem he's got, Will, forgive the long answer, it's the people behind him. This is a guy that tried to introduce very minimal cuts to welfare payments in order to reduce the size of the welfare state, disability allowance, just tightening up some of the outrageous abuse of the system.
Yeah.
And he wasn't able to do that. So I think his party's ungovernable. And so the answer is no change.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing that Ed Miliband, he tried to move him out of the energy portfolio.
Right.
And Ed Miliband said, no, sorry, mate, bad luck.
Can you imagine Margaret Thatcher trying to fire someone and they're saying, no, I'm not going?
Yeah,
How would that conversation go?
Yeah, not well for the person who rejected it, I would imagine. It goes to show his authority is shredded. I'm not so sure that he will pivot on immigration in a sufficiently serious way, because I agree with you, he largely doesn't have any principles. He certainly has no political instinct that I can see.
Yeah.
But if there is one thing that this person does believe in, it is this international human rights law furphy, which our current immigration system is so beholden to. I just don't think someone who spent his life as a human rights lawyer is going to do what is necessary, specifically looking at the Human Rights Act and the ECHR.
And the Refugee Convention.
Because it basically would be a repudiation of everything that he has ever done. It would be a repudiation of his record, his career, and I don't think he would be willing to do that.
Well, it's really funny that you mention that, because you often hear that if we left the ECHR, our membership of it, that we would be judged around the world.
Yeah.
Okay. And opinion of Britain would drop significantly. Well, I've got news for you. Well, I know if you share this. Forgive me for being so hardcore, and I don't know, Christian, if I've had too much coffee this morning. Are you ready for this? I don't care what the international community thinks of Britain.
Yeah.
I care what my viewers and listeners think of Britain. I care what the citizens of this country. I don't care if we're either a laughingstock or looked down upon as, worse than Belarus and Russia by people in Geneva.
Yeah.
It's not my problem.
Well, this is a common trick.
Have I gone too far? Have I lost the plot?
No, of course you haven't. This is a common trick.
Is Christian going to have to pull me back in here?
This is a common trick.
He never had this with Nick Ferrari, let me tell you.
No, I bet. This is a common trick from the Liberal left. When they say that the world will judge us, what they mean is that people like them who live in the United States may judge us. Other Guardian readers around the world will judge us. Other academics will judge us. Other people who, drink their lattes in, the equivalent of Islington or the equivalent of Notting Hill, in parts of the Western world will judge us. The vast majority of people don't even think about the United Kingdom, and some of the people who do think about the United Kingdom are laughing at us already when they hear these stupid stories about refugees being allowed to stay in the country, about the excessive clampdown on freedom of speech. Like, if they are worried about the UK's global reputation, they should be worried right now, not worried about what would happen if we decide to get out of some of these ridiculous global conventions.
Well, my brilliant team have got the numbers on arrests yesterday and arrests at Notting Hill Carnival. Both events I support. Okay, Notting Hill Carnival's celebration of sort of Caribbean history and the Caribbean history within the UK and London, that's fine. I don't like the trouble, but I guess you give a lot of people beer and music and parties, all the rest of it. So, Notting Hill Carnival, 423 arrests with 2 stabbed, and a lot of antisocial behaviour alongside that. Like I mentioned, all of the preventative measures that have to be taken, including by residents. Yesterday, 150,000 people, 25 arrests. I think it tells a story, doesn't it? I mean, what do you think?
Well, the other thing you haven't said there is the huge numbers of sexual assaults that occur every year at the Notting Hill Carnival, which didn't take place yesterday, and the amount of people, police officers who are inevitably seriously assaulted at the Notting Hill Carnival far exceeds what we saw yesterday as well.
What we're going to discuss next, we've got more front pages, but are the numbers at that march yesterday, 100,000, 150, some said 3 million, but do you have any steer on the numbers? Because I'm inclined to be conservative when it comes to these numbers, because I think if you claim there are 3 million, I think you enter the kind of Donald Trump territory of estimating the size of a crowd.
I've always found it, I actually don't really know how they go about getting to those sorts of estimations. There must be some sort of scientific method behind it. What I would say is that I think that the establishment, so the police and the government, have a very strong incentive to underplay those numbers. So I don't personally believe that 110,000 figure, but in terms of getting to an exact number, I find it difficult. It would be more than 110,000 in my opinion.
And again, maybe I've lost the plot, but I find 25 arrests incredibly embarrassing for the establishment.
Yeah.
Because to me that is a trivial number. I mean, there have got to be more arrests at a regular average Premier League match, especially the North London Derby or the Manchester derby, which I think is coming up today. So the bottom line is, here's my question for you, and we're going into the break now, and you're very welcome to join this conversation, 0344 499 1000. And here's my question, which is, if it's, let's just settle on 150,000 people, many argue it's more, but if it's 150k, are those people a bunch of intolerant cranks and thugs and hooligans, or are they the tip of the iceberg? We'll discuss that next.
Yeah, the left is advocating for violence. They're celebrating violence. We've seen this. We've seen posts with hundreds of thousands of likes glorifying the death of Charlie Kirk. And what has Charlie done?
But that's the reason why he was shot, because of this horrendous what's going on. People, they're calling him far right. They're saying that you're fascist Nazis, and this results in people with low IQs shooting him.
Charlie had conversations with people who had differing opinions, and he had civil conversations.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, Yvette Cooper is a politician that likes to fail upwards. She's now the Foreign Secretary, and the front page of the Sunday Mirror, Yvette Cooper exclusive. We'll never give up on Ukraine. Foreign Secretary's defiant promise on Kyiv. She pledges new sanctions on Russia. Reeves, now Chancellor in name only, say the Sunday Express. And how about this? The Mail on Sunday, 100 new Epstein emails could destroy Prince Andrew. We'll come to all of that shortly, as well as a fresh headache for Sir Keir Starmer. But, Will, can we just finish this conversation about the march yesterday, which has been either ignored by most of the media or an effort has been made to characterise it as a ragbag of ne'er-do-wells who cause trouble?
It wasn't on the front page of the Telegraph, I've just noticed. In fact, I think it's 4 or 5 pages back. Now, Mark, over 100,000 people. Again, we're not quite sure on the numbers, but a huge amount of people walked through the streets of central London yesterday.
Yeah.
That is front page news, no matter what the context of the march is. So it makes you wonder, why are so many of the papers hesitant to actually address this? I still think there is a slight hesitance to be associated with Tommy Robinson. I think there is a hesitance around that far-right label, around the racist label, particularly amongst the media class. But this is why these sorts of rallies are so important, because it does challenge the notion that having a stance against mass migration, having concerns around multiculturalism, are not far-right, they're not racist, they are simply an expression of wanting to have a well-run, organised, unified country.
And of course, some of the people on that march yesterday were of colour themselves. And I think certainly, again, I'm sorry to keep saying establishment, but it is really the political, media, corporate and public sector elite, isn't it, who have shaped the national conversation for all these years now and shaped policy, and everyone's pushing back. But if you look at the support for reform, they didn't get the memo that millions of Brits of an ethnic background will also be voting reform.
Yeah, very much so. And this is, again, another reason why these sorts of rallies are important, because they do shift the Overton window. They shift what is acceptable to say in polite society, and that then informs what parties like Reform are comfortable bringing from a policy perspective. I would note, for example, that 12 to 18 months ago, Reform weren't comfortable with the idea of detention for illegal migrants. They weren't comfortable with the idea of deportation in the way that they are now. And the only reason that they've shifted their policy settings is because there have been so many people, in places like talkTV, for example, on the online right, in inverted commas, who have been making the case in a considered but forceful way. And this is another example of that yesterday.
Worth pointing out, if you want to have authority and be balanced about it, there will have been some dodgy characters there yesterday. There will have been some racists. There will have been some white supremacists, whatever labels you are. It's wrong on the other side to dismiss the fact that there will have been some thugs present who hate foreigners. Is that fair to say?
Well, of course, it would be statistically impossible for there not to be in a group of over 100,000 people. There's going to be loonies in that sort of mass congregation, no matter what the point of that movement is. But I just find it really interesting that still, every one of these papers that I've just glanced through, they lead with the loonies, whereas if it is a left-leaning protest, they will lean with the majority and they will ignore the loonies. So that's what happened with BLM, for example. They tried to cover up the fringe elements of that movement, and I would argue actually that element is a fringe movement in its totality. But if it is this sort of protest, they lead with the very small minority of troublemakers.
And
that's about trying to create a narrative.
Yeah, for sure. I listened to a news bulletin yesterday, and obviously I was running an ear and an eye across what was happening at the marches, and I was praying there wouldn't be trouble, which I would argue provably there was not. If it's 25 arrests for that number of people, that's not journalistically, that's not a story, in my opinion. It's a trivial number. So, but the news report described the rally as far right. And described the counter-protest as a stand-up to racism protest. Now, the language of that is very partisan. Because if you're going to call yesterday's march far-right, and I'm happy to have that conversation whether it is or isn't far-right, but if you're going to do that, then stand-up to racism is far-left. But you don't hear that on the radio or TV.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's what they are.
This is all about shaping a particular narrative. And the difference now, as opposed to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, is that people are seeing through those blatant attempts to try and create this false narrative around what it means to actually have an honest conversation around where this country is going with respect to mass migration and multiculturalism.
Yeah, I mean, stand up to racism, that sounds like a lovely group of people. We could all go on that march, because I don't know anyone that likes racism, and I know that everyone I know would want to stand up to racism. So they sound like lovely people.
This is the genius of the left, and they do it all the time. They're excellent at using
anti-fascist.
They're excellent at using language to try and mask the true goals of what their movement is trying to achieve. Diversity, equity and inclusion. Who could possibly argue with that? This is just the kind and tolerant group. They are really good at taking language and using it and manipulating it to try and mask what they're really trying to achieve.
And then they use labels for their opponents: far right, fascist, Nazi, anti-vaxxer, COVID denier, granny killer. It's a very familiar playbook.
Yeah, and they are trying very hard to paint this group of people as the violent group. Obviously, we have had a week in America which highlighted that political violence is very real. Now, we need to have this conversation. I think that there is violence on the right and the left, sure, undeniable.
Yeah.
I do, however, think that violence and political violence is becoming more inherent in the ideology of the left, is a feature of the ideology. When you continuously say that words are violence, you actually then normalise it. You make it acceptable to respond to those words with violence. And I have been stunned with the sheer scale of people who have responded to that Charlie Kirk assassination on the left by effectively saying words to the extent of, well, he kind of had it coming. And these aren't fringe loonies saying this now. These are nurses, these are doctors, these are engineers, these are teachers, these are people you meet in everyday life. I think more on the left than the right, the use of violence to achieve particular ends, if it is someone who is racist or evil in their eyes, is becoming normalised.
Most definitely. The most egregious example I saw of the celebrations around Charlie Kirk's murder was from a public sector worker in America who had a photoshopped, like an altered image that they'd done on a computer of the child, the daughter of Charlie Kirk, saying she was present with blood spattered on her face, smiling. And the instruction was, well, I don't know really if I can even say this in the morning, but I'm going to actually, which is that this is what a supposedly good liberal person in America on the left, I'm a good human being, hashtag be kind, is they should also take the life of Charlie Kirk's wife so that the children can be taken into care, de-radicalised, and then they can hate their parents.
Yeah.
And this is the caring left.
Yeah, it's like, it really is sickening.
And this is someone at a dinner party that will present themselves as a good person.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other reason why that sort of commentary, I think, is more normalised now on the left and the right is the left has made identity politics central to their mission. And if you feel like your identity is being attacked, then you feel again like there is a higher emotional element there, and you feel like it is more legitimate to respond to an attack on your identity with violence. If you're on the right and you just believe in lower taxes and lower spending, you're probably not going to get to a level of aggression and anger about that, which would then go to picking up a gun and doing something awful. But if you believe that your race is under attack, if you believe that your gender is under attack at an existential level, suddenly violence becomes more appropriate to use. That again is a difference.
Sure, we're going to do more front pages and we're going to talk about Starmer in deep trouble after this.
Yeah.
But just to close up the conversation for now on the march, which by the way is the topic of today's Dolan Dispatch at 8 a.m. The monologue is back. I want to ask you, Tommy Robinson is a controversial figure. He's certainly had a criminal background. I think he's made mistakes. He's a divisive figure. Some see him as a hero and others see him as a dangerous thug. That is a conversation, I think, for another day. My question to you is, if you look at that march and if you take the view that the majority of those people are ordinary Brits worried about what's happening to their country, which is my view too, do they have the right cause but the wrong leader in Tommy Robinson?
I don't think anyone in the United Kingdom could have got nearly as many people to that rally yesterday as Tommy Robinson. That's the long and the short of it. He does have particular elements of his past which are questionable, but the reality is, if you want to turn this into a mass movement, if you want to get as many people as possible to support what I think is a very good cause, I don't think anyone else in this country could have mobilised that rally yesterday in the way that he did.
And that 150,000 people, is that an exclusive group or are they the tip of the iceberg?
Oh, they are the tip of the iceberg, make no mistake. And you're seeing that because you're seeing now how Reform is charging ahead in the polls. You're seeing that when you look at individual polling that is done on issues like mass migration. It is now the mainstream opinion to have serious questions and to reject the mass migration policy, and I think also to reject this unthinking multiculturalism, not multi-ethnicism, but this unthinking multiculturalism that now that I think that the UK has run with over now, 30, 40 years.
Sir Keir Starmer is in very deep trouble this morning. We'll discuss that next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sir Keir Starmer is in deep trouble this morning, and it's partly because he gave so much support to the UK ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, when it turns out, as alleged by The Telegraph today, he hadn't actually done his due diligence on this iconic Labour politician. First of all, here is Sir Keir Starmer hailing Peter Mandelson when he first got the job. Longer clip if you can, Dave.
There's a real buzz around Washington right now. You can sense that there's a new leader in town, that he's a true one-off, a pioneer in business and in politics. Many people love him. Others love to hate him. But to us, he's just Peter. Peter is the right person to help us work with President Trump and to take this special relationship from strength to strength.
I love it when Starmer does comedy.
People listening on the radio won't be able to see Starmer's face there, but there's almost this look of surprise when he hears that people are laughing at him. He's going, "Oh my lord, This is actually extraordinary. I've got to laugh once in my life." Yeah. He's not a natural comedian, is he?
He most definitely isn't. Although it looks to have been a comedic decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, and here is Starmer offering his full confidence, the dreaded vote of confidence, in Mandelson at Prime Minister's Questions just days ago.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Let me now refer you to today's Sunday Telegraph, who have an exclusive. PM hired Mandelson without proper checks. Sir Keir Starmer appointed Lord Mandelson as ambassador to the United States without fully vetting his links to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Number 10 confirmed the Labour grandee's elevation to the role before formal security checks on him had begun. At the time of December's announcement, he'd only been subject to light questioning on his relationship with the billionaire. Will Kingston, you would face more scrutiny if you were a cleaner at Number 10 than UK ambassador to Washington.
It really is curious, isn't it? Particularly given that Mandelson had several scandals unrelated to Epstein before he became ambassador. People were well aware that this is a man who likes to court the highest positions of power in the UK establishment. He's often seen hanging around the richest person in the room, often the most controversial person in the room. This looks really bad for Starmer, not just because I think it now is becoming more clear that he did know about the extent of the relationship with Epstein after Epstein was convicted of effectively sexual relationships with minors. But more than that, how does this not just show an extraordinary lack of political instinct and judgment? I can't see how his position is tenable. I really can't.
He's definitely under pressure. He's definitely feeling the heat. And it's just another scandal upon so many others. Of course, the former Transport Secretary, Louise Haigh, resigned for lying to the police over a stolen mobile phone. This was ridiculous. I've got a clip on Starmer after her resignation. Take a listen to this.
Mr. Speaker, the previous Transport Secretary was right when further information came forward to resign. What a marked contrast to behaviour in the last 14 years.
The anti-corruption minister, Tulip Siddiq, now on trial for, wait for it, Will Kingston, corruption in Bangladesh. Deputy Prime Minister, of course, Angela Rayner, most high-profile example of this, resigning over the avoidance of stamp duty over £40,000 that she ought to have paid and didn't, and has since paid. There's a pattern emerging here, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, but it's made all the more egregious because he did actually run explicitly by saying we're going to be the adults, we're going to bring standards back to politics. When Boris Johnson is engulfed in a scandal, you almost expect it in some respects because he's a mountebank, he's a rogue, that's his political persona. But when the only thing you have in your personal brand, or as your personal brand, is boring, serious, but ethical, when you don't live up to that, it is far, far worse. And people just call you a hypocrite. And now I think people are looking at Starmer and they see an empty hypocrite.
Is this, however, a Westminster bubble story? Why does the Mandelson scandal matter to my viewers and listeners, do you think?
That's an interesting question. I think it is just adding. It's another example of incompetence and a failing to meet a standard that they themselves have set.
And poor judgment.
Yeah, exactly. Is it as important as illegal or legal migration, or the economy, or the NHS, or take your pick? No, it isn't. But it is demonstrative of a government that is clearly not working behind the scenes and clearly isn't able to deliver to the people in the way that it should.
Let's have a look at today's Sunday Express, Will. Reeves, now Chancellor in name only. Rachel Reeves has been branded a Chancellor in name only, with Sir Keir Starmer creating his own economic team in number 10. And another story in the Telegraph, Britain's tax burden has reached the critical point at which further increases will cost more money than they raise. Now, this according to Dr. Arthur Laffer, the guy behind the Laffer curve, which demonstrates that if taxes reach a certain point, they cease to bring money in and they start to actually lose money for the Treasury.
Yeah, we are tumbling down the dark side of the Laffer curve, Mark. It's
and it's really no laughing matter.
But touche.
You're welcome.
But this is the thing. There are several ways that you can go about trying to fix an economy. You can just tax people more. You can reduce spending, or you can try and grow the economy. Now, the problem that this government faces is that they can't reduce spending. A, it's not in their DNA as a Labor Party, and B, whenever Starmer even makes the most moderate of suggestions, or Reeves, his loony lefty backbench revolts. They obviously don't know how to grow an economy, because none of them really have worked in business, and none of them have the DNA to basically say, this is how you grow something economically. The only lever that they understand as a Labor Party is raising taxes. Now, that can work for a period. I don't like it, but it can work. The problem is we've taxed and taxed and taxed, and to the point around the Laffer curve, we cannot keep raising taxes because it's just going to be counterproductive. You're already seeing the huge numbers of millionaires that are leaving the country. Business investment is not where it should be. We need to have a different approach to think about economics, but unfortunately, this is not the government that can deliver on that different approach.
Well, there's a theme emerging in our conversation, because we talked about whether Starmer would pivot on illegal immigration and legal immigration, which he needs to but likely won't. We also need a pivot on the economy, which again is not going to happen. And of course, where Rachel Reeves has a major issue is that she's promised not to raise income tax, VAT and national insurance. Do you consider the possibility that rule will be broken, that manifesto pledge? Do you think that things will get so bad out there in the international bond markets that we have to break the rules in order to keep the lights on?
Possibly. But I think it is more likely that taxes will just keep going up and up and up.
And it's indirect, smaller taxes which affect individual groups like farmers, which creates actually a lot more anger. Yeah,
it does. It does. And I think basically if you are wealthy and the government doesn't think that you have to be have a particularly high salary to be wealthy in this country, you will be particularly targeted.
I'm not too worried, though, because this is some important information about Rachel Reeves. Take a listen.
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
She said economics 3 times there in one sentence, so we'll be fine. And also, thank God, she's our first woman chancellor, because that's so important.
Well, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. The economy may be tanking,
but
at least we've ticked the identity politics boxes, Mark. That's the main thing in today's day and age.
Shall we indulge in a little bit of tabloid fodder? Because the front page of The Sun on Sunday, they've got a great exclusive, and it's about Tom Skinner, who's an apprentice star, formerly. So he's an entrepreneur, and he's also now appearing on Strictly Come Dancing. He's big on social media. And BBC Dance Show exclusive, Strictly Tom, My Affair Shame. This is Strictly Come Dancing's Thomas Skinner has admitted cheating on his wife Just weeks after they married, the tearful ex-apprentice star, who is 34, called it a 2-week fling and said guilt took over after he slept with a beauty clinic boss. He apologised to his wife Sinead, saying, "I let her down in a moment of madness." Obviously, he's made a mistake. We're all human. It was not a good thing to do. But this is the problem. If you appear on reality TV, Fleet Street are going to investigate you and pour through your past.
Yeah, that's true. But make no mistake, I think what would have happened, well, my guess as to what would have happened to you is that someone who, or a group of people who don't like Tom, would have done some digging. They would have gone to the Sun, and the Sun would have said, you've got 2 choices. You can either sit down for a teary interview, or we're just going to release this anyway without you having any involvement, and he's chosen the former. The thing about Tom Skinner is most of the stuff he says is uncontroversial, positive sort of love your country stuff.
Yeah, get up in the morning, go and attack the day.
Yeah, all that
very
sort of
motivational things.
Yeah, really quite vanilla, and the left hate him for it. Absolutely hate him. So I'm sure, someone from some sort of leftist activist group has done a bit of work here and dug this up.
Right. So you see this as a sort of politically targeted...
I don't know. But
you think there's a chance?
I certainly wouldn't rule it out. It is just extraordinary that I've seen... he is politically so uncontroversial, but still... he is a figure of hate now for so many people, particularly online.
Yes, you just have to say, be patriotic, love your country.
Yeah, that's
or immigration is great, but it's too high.
Yeah.
All of that is far right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you have to feel sorry for him, because at the heart of this is a human being. And actually, it's quite a shocking photograph on the front page of The Sun on Sunday. His face is red and he does look tearful. I know Tom Skinner, he's a gentleman, he's a family man. He's also a human being, and we all make mistakes.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Now, I would say, if this is true and it was merely weeks after he got married, not a good look.
No way.
I don't think anyone would dispute that. It's certainly not a good look. He is a public figure, so unfortunately, it is fair game. But it's just it goes to show that if you get involved in the cut and thrust of I wouldn't even say he really is in politics, but you get involved in the cut and thrust of public debate, which he now is on X, you are going to be targeted.
However, do we need these so-called normies, right? Regular people who have a public profile? Do we need them to speak out? Do we need the likes of Thomas Skinner, who's a man that lives in the real world, to say, hey, it's okay to love your country, and hey, some of the policies around, border control are actually, bad and not working? Do we need people like that? Are they the ones that are going to help move the conversation forward? Because Ryland Clark, of course, made headlines with his remarks on ITV's This Morning, and I thought they were very helpful. Because he said, look, I'm not anti-immigration, but it's crazy that people are crossing the channel illegally.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, another good example of someone who said some things which were really, in the greater scheme of things, pretty mild. Yeah. And yet, once again, got the most incredible hate on the back of that. Yeah, I think it is important to have more moderate, apolitical voices saying this sort of stuff. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, not everyone listens to talkTV or watches GB News or reads the Telegraph. Really, most of the views and opinions that are shaped in this country are shaped down at the pub. They're shaped at the school pickup. They're shaped by speaking to people in your community who may not be, political nerds, but they have a sense and a feeling about where this country is going. That's why the average person is so important in driving this conversation forward.
All we need now is for Anton Deck to say, stop the boats. And we're done.
Don't hold your breath.
It's coming. Listen, we're going into a very short intermission now, but next up, I've got a big conversation for you. First Channel migrants to be sent back to France tomorrow. Will it work? Is it too little too late? Are you convinced? Plus taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. See you in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
I think it is very, very unlikely that anyone would have prevented the Prime Minister seeing that security information, which we're now being told contained information about Mandelson's ongoing relationship with Epstein. And that's to say that the Prime Minister actually knew about this all along.
Yeah.
I think that casts major doubt over his judgment, and he has enormously serious questions to answer. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to push the government to publish that information, put it on the public record so we can all see who knew what when.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
More front pages. We're going to have a look at this story a little bit later. 100 new Epstein emails could destroy Prince Andrew, and why Prince William is doubling down on his rift with his brother Harry. And Sunday Mirror. Yvette Cooper exclusive, we will never give up on Ukraine. But how about this from the front page of the Telegraph? First Channel migrants to be sent back to France tomorrow. And the first Channel migrants are to be deported on flights as early as tomorrow under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal. The asylum seekers who arrived in the UK on small boats last month have been issued with formal removal directions, telling them that they will be deported back to France within 5 days. Plenty of my viewers and listeners will be happy to hear that news and to hear that headline, Will. Is it enough? Will it work?
No, is the short answer. It's a farce. The key principle in illegal immigration is deterrence. You need to have an effective deterrent to stop people from going over the channel in a dinghy. Now, when people still see the migrant hotels, when they still hear the stories about being given money, when they still see that you've got a very, very good chance of staying in this country if you do go over, that is not an effective enough deterrent. And now also keep in mind that this one-in, one-out deal means that France has the opportunity to vet who they want to send to receive back in the country. Yeah. It is the scale of numbers is not going to work, particularly in these early stages, but also it doesn't provide an effective enough deterrent. The only effective deterrent is detention and then deportation, mass deportation.
Which, of course, now appears to be the policy of Reform UK. If they achieve power, do you think they'll actually do that?
Yes, I do. I do.
Including the mass deportation?
Yes, I do. Is
that a shifting of positions in the part of Nigel Farage? Because he's certainly in the past sort of hesitated at the idea of removing people and sending them.
Well, I do recall an interview 18 months ago now, maybe even earlier, maybe even 12 months ago.
Steve Edgington, was it?
Yeah, well, something along the lines of that mass deportations would lead us down a very dark path.
Yeah.
So the rhetoric has certainly changed. It's changed because, as I said earlier, that a lot of people have done a lot of very good work to normalise that as a concept. But I think reform will follow through, A, because they're actually willing to do what is necessary, which is untangle this international law framework that we've managed to find ourselves in. But secondly, because there is now a huge amount of people, not just their base, but beyond that, who are now comfortable with the idea that detention isn't inhumane, it is necessary, and deportation isn't inhumane, it is necessary. I would add, coming from Australia, where they did manage to solve this problem, detention and then deportation is the only way you can get a grip on this problem.
Now, at the march yesterday, there are, disputed claims about how many people were in attendance. The official figure is sort of 100 to 150,000 people. My producer, Christian's been actually looking at video footage, courtesy of The Guardian, no less. And it doesn't take a fool to work out it looks to be well in excess of 150,000 people. Could be towards 500,000. Now, we may never know, and there's a lot of politics around revealing that number. The bottom line is those present Were they the tip of the iceberg or just an isolated group of cranks? Let's get the views of Dave in gorgeous County Durham in the northeast. Hello, Dave. Top of the morning to you. Happy Sunday.
Hello, Mark.
Dave, tell me what your reflections on yesterday's march. Why do you think those people were marching?
Well, obviously they're disgusted with the way the government's been behaving towards our countrymen, our people.
Yeah.
But what I would like to pick up on, Mark, is that you were saying that there was only 25 people arrested.
Yes.
Which is, that's correct now at the moment. But I'm sure that the Met are going to be going hell for leather to scan these CTV footage and make many, many more arrests. I can guarantee there's going to be hundreds of arrests within a week or two.
So you think that the police are going to politicise this? They're going to weaponise CCTV footage and the ability to arrest people as a way of interfering with democracy? Is that your view, Dave?
Yeah, 100%. They're going to be arresting anybody who coughs, basically. They're going to find reasons on a CTV footage to arrest people. I can 100% guarantee that. Let's wait a week or so and see how many arrests that actually are going to be made.
Because at the moment, as it stands, Dave, 25 arrests for what looks to be 150, 200, 300,000 people is minuscule and demonstrates a peaceful protest.
Exactly. It's a total embarrassment for the government. They would love to the rioters to have kicked off yesterday. One, it would take the heat off Keir Starmer's position.
Most definitely. And would you go on such a march locally, Dave, if you could? If there was something happening in the northeast, would you attend?
I would attend any march, but I'm 80 years old, for God's sake.
Oh, listen, you sound like a very sprightly 80 years old. What's the problem? Is it your knees, Dave, or your hips?
Well, I've been waiting for 2 years for an operation on my back, one of like many thousands of other people.
Oh, Dave, my heart goes out to you. There's nothing worse than back pain. Dave, let me tell my viewers and listeners, if you're watching on YouTube and if you're watching the stream online, then we've got footage of this march. I'm sorry, folks. That is more than 150,000 people. How many do you think were there, Dave?
God, I would say at least 500,000, at the very least.
Yep. Yeah. And Dave, stay with me. I've got Will Kingston here, my political commentator friend. Will, why is there such a dispute over the numbers, do you think? Why is this a talking point?
It's an attempt to delegitimise it, to say that this is a fringe group and not reflective of the wider British population. I'm looking at this footage. If you can't see on the radio at the moment, the footage is from The Guardian from a helicopter, and the crowd just goes back and back and back and back. It is actually stunning to look at. But yes, if you can say, well, there weren't that many people here in the greater scheme of things, it is easier to paint them as just a fringe group of far-right thugs. If you're starting to say that 500,000, potentially up to 1 million people were there, suddenly you're saying that this is reflective of wider Britain.
Most definitely, I agree with you. Dave, thank you for your call. I wish you well.
Thanks, Dave.
And Dave, thank you for contributing to this conversation. Folks, we've got so much more to get through in the next 3 hours. Don't forget, the monologue is back at 8 a.m. I'm going to point out that the 100, 200, 300,000 people marching yesterday in London are the tip of the iceberg. A political revolution is coming. That is the Dolan Dispatch at exactly 8 a.m. Appointment to view, appointment to listen. And my thanks to the brilliant Will Kingston, political commentator. Will, how can people find out more about what you do?
You can go on to YouTube and search for Fire at Will. It's my weekly podcast. You won't want to miss a minute of it.
Well, based upon the last hour, that's absolutely right. Will, lovely to see you again.
A pleasure, Mark.
It's great that you come over from the dark side. And we'll catch up soon. Folks, lots more to get through. And give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. Yeah.
We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A happy Sunday to one and all. A big 3 hours for you coming up. Thousands of people marched in the capital yesterday based around a message of patriotism. Conservative numbers suggest upwards of 150,000 people attended. We think it could be double or triple that. But what we do know is that there were 25 arrests, which is minuscule. Was this the quiet expression of people power, and will the political establishment listen? Oh dear, he'll be spitting his coffee out this morning. Things are getting worse for Sir Keir Starmer, who, it's been revealed, hired Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington without proper checks, casting significant doubts on the Prime Minister's competence and judgment. No sugar, Sherlock. There's a surprise. Keir Starmer, poor judgment. Also, more problems for Rachel from accounts. Rachel Reeves' planned rise in taxes will cost more than they raise, says the world's leading economics expert. Just how broke is Britain? Shocking headline in today's Express newspaper. Reeves now Chancellor in name only. And the first Channel migrants are set to be deported on flights back to France as early as tomorrow under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with France. Will it work? Is it a turning point in the battle against illegal immigration, or yet another false dawn? And the monologue is back at 8 o'clock in just 1 hour's time. 150,000 people, 200,000 people, 300k. Who cares what the numbers are? Were the people marching yesterday the tip of the iceberg? That is the Dolan dispatch at 8 o'clock. You will not want to miss it. It might get me cancelled, and do you know what? Good. I hope it does. Of course, I can't be cancelled here because this is not just the home of common sense. It is the home of free speech. This is Talk. Book your place on the show, 0344 499 1000. Producer Tommy is on fire this morning. He's had 3 coffees and he's ready to take your call. And it's going to be a busy show. Texts, calls, guests, all the rest of it. But your opinions are my priority. 0344 499 1000. And here's a question. What do you think of the people on those marches yesterday? Are they brave patriots or far-right thugs? I'm going to hear all opinions. And if you went on the march, give me a call. Let me know what happened. Let me know why you did it. And we'll have a proper conversation. Yes, folks, 0344 499 1000. A busy 3 hours to come. Dolan dispatch at 8. Let's talk. Well, I do love Sunday mornings, I've got to say. It's a great moment in the week, isn't it? You get your coffee on the go, you got the papers, and one more day of respite before the working week begins on the Monday. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. Sunday Express, as I mentioned, Reeves now Chancellor in name only. Rachel Reeves has been branded a Chancellor in name only, with Sir Keir Starmer creating his own economics team in number 10 to try to end the chaos threatening his premiership. Labour insiders say the Prime Minister has lost confidence in Rachel Reeves. Let me tell you, he's not the only one. Britain's first woman Chancellor. Thank God she's a woman, because that's what matters, isn't it? It's not inflation or unemployment or interest rates. It's the gender of the person at number 11. Well, look, she's in real trouble. And it's not just the Express that have drawn attention to that, because there's a cracking story in today's Sunday Telegraph. Rachel Reeves's taxes will cost more than they raise. Welcome to socialism, folks. Britain's tax burden has reached the critical point at which further increases will cost more money than they raise, according to a prominent US economist called Dr. Arthur Laffer, who is responsible for the Laffer curve, which basically demonstrates something that you and I know. It's common sense, which is that if taxes get to a certain point, they stop bringing money in and they begin to lose the country cash. We've got the Mail on Sunday. Bad news for Prince Andrew. 100 new Epstein emails could destroy Andrew. The problem is, what would you do with Andrew if there's another scandal? I mean, he's already lost HRH. He's lost his public duties. All of the charities and military organisations have disowned him. What can they do? I mean, stick him in a council flat in East London? I don't know what further punishment is available to the royal family and to the country regarding Prince Andrew, but he's definitely an embarrassment. Sunday Mirror, Yvette Cooper exclusive, we will never give up on Ukraine. Foreign Secretary's defiant promise on Kyiv. What do you think about that? Clearly, that country is an innocent country that was invaded by Russia. It's also my view that Vladimir Putin doesn't seem to want peace, but are you happy for your money, for your taxes, to continue to support the war in Ukraine? Give me your thoughts on that. And Sunday Times, new revelations over Mandelson, increased pressure on Starmer. Sir Keir Starmer's premiership crisis deepened last night after fresh revelations about his dealings with Lord Mandelson and a growing revolt among his ministers and MPs. The worst week of Starmer's leadership continued when it emerged that shortly before he appointed Mandelson as US ambassador, he had received a report detailing the peer's relationship with Epstein. And one particularly damning element of that is that it appears the Prime Minister knew that Peter Mandelson had been appointed by Starmer after Mandelson had spent time with Epstein post his conviction as a paedophile. Make it make sense. Let's get reaction from someone that will make it make sense. I'm delighted to say the brilliant political commentator, broadcaster and writer Benedict Spence joins me. Hello, Benedict.
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well indeed. Why does this Peter Mandelson story matter to my viewers and listeners?
I mean, why it matters fundamentally is I think it shows a catastrophic lack of political judgment by the Prime Minister. I mean, first and foremost, you can't sort of get away from that. Whatever the motivation was, it shows that this is somebody who either didn't understand the gravity of the allegations and the situation, or simply didn't care and thought that actually he could sort of just bulldoze through it. And it doesn't really matter which of those it is. That's a very concerning thing. If it's a Prime Minister who simply straight up didn't get how upsetting, how grotesque it could be to employ somebody in this position who was very close, A, with a convicted paedophile, but B, deeply unapologetic, it seems, for great periods, especially given the correspondence that comes out, or who simply felt that actually his needs were better and he knew better, and actually that his agenda was more important than this. You know, I think that why this is so important is, as I say, I think it reveals a character flaw in the Prime Minister, either through arrogance or stupidity. And as I say, whichever one of those it is, that's not great. That's not a great thing to be having in the leader of the government. And I think set against everything else that's been going on in the past fortnight, the number of ministers who have been reshuffled, the Deputy Prime Minister losing her job again over a lack of judgment, I think it all just contributes to the picture that has been painted of the Labour Party, which is that they came in saying that they were the best prepared government in waiting in history, and it turned out to be a lie.
Yes, it puts paid to the idea, doesn't it, Benedict, of the grown-ups back in charge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, we've all taken great fun, great joy in being able to, every time something incredibly immature or stupid happens, reminds them that that was what they and their supporters said was, okay, this is great, the adults are back in the room. Of course, that's famously what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden supporters said when they got in and they replaced Donald Trump. Don't worry, sort of everybody's going to be very mature, and, oh, well, it doesn't matter that the guy that we're replacing him with doesn't remember where he is or who he is. And it's a similar sort of vein. You just knew the chutzpah, the tempting fate of saying, well, we're better than these people, we're going to do it all better, we're going to be very boring and sensible about it all, and then lo and behold, everything that you could possibly imagine that could go wrong is going wrong, and for incredibly embarrassing reasons. It's corruption ministers being charged with corruption. It's homelessness czars kicking out their tenants and being found to jack up the rents unnecessarily and unfairly at a time that they're talking about rent controls. And of course, it's a housing minister getting in a little bit of hot water because she tried to pull a fast one on her housing. It's just, you know, one thing after the other. It's incredibly embarrassing on a national level, but also it speaks to the dysfunction that we see in government, which has a real-world impact on people's lives.
Most definitely. Let me offer a brief, if I may, and fleeting defence of Sir Keir Starmer. Is there an argument that you have to overlook some of his frailties, Mandelson's frailties, in order to get the best man in the job? Because if we look at Mandelson's record as UK ambassador to Washington, he's been transformative, hasn't he? He's the Trump whisperer. He's paved the way for Sir Keir Starmer to have a surprisingly good relationship with the president. And of course, he was a participant in and an active proponent of the trade deal between the United Kingdom, which saw us achieve a better trade deal with America than the EU.
All of these things, it must be said, are true. I think if the nature of the allegations, if the nature of the story was less severe, he might have survived. I think it could have even been quite severe and he could have survived. If he'd been sniffing glue behind the bike sheds, maybe the Prime Minister would have gone...
Don't knock it till you've tried it, is all I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. And the Prime Minister might have gone, well, look, if it helps him to perform, then who am I to stop him?
I'm joking, folks. Kids don't try that at home.
Oh, whoops.
I stick to strong coffee, that's all I need.
But you know what I mean. If it had been sort of a minor miscreant behaviour in his private life, that, you know, to be honest, lots of politicians and lots of people in life do get up to, maybe it could have been excused. But it's, you know, it's a bit more sinister than that. Well, nobody's sort of saying that, you know, Mandelson was involved in any of the things that Epstein were involved with, but it was the fact that actually he was so staunchly defending him. He remained friends with him. I think where he wrote to Epstein, look, this would have never happened to you if you'd been in the UK, I think that touches a really sore spot in a post-Jimmy Savile world. I don't think you can get away with being a senior politician and saying, oh, don't worry, our laws would have protected you against this sort of thing. I think that's just an incredibly dangerous thing.
The issue that Sir Keir Starmer has, Bennett, as well, isn't it, is that there's no love lost between the leadership, Starmer, and then the backbenchers, and they also loathe and detest Peter Mandelson.
Yes, of course, and that's for personal reasons. It's because of his association with Tony Blair. Much of the membership is increasingly left-wing. A lot of the backbench MPs are as well. It's creating, I think, a bit of a Mexican standoff within the party right now, because there's no question that there's lots of briefing going on saying MPs are losing trust, they're losing faith in the Prime Minister. There was the suggestion the other day, 2 days ago, in the Telegraph that Andy Burnham is on manoeuvres, even though he's not an MP, but that he's starting up some sort of new pressure group within the party called Mainstream, and that he's going to back Lucy Powell for the deputy leadership, and that there will be attempts now to further undermine Starmer. But Starmer was already being undermined massively when he was unable, when he and Rachel Reeves were unable to pass changes to welfare, relatively small cuts, and their backbenchers revolted. I think the tone was already kind of set. You're going to see more of that sort of thing. There isn't really the mechanism, I think, to get rid of Starmer just yet, as much as they're going to try, probably. And of course, Clive Lewis fired the starting gun on that by saying he didn't think that Starmer should stay in charge. It's going to be difficult to do that, but I think that they are going to continue to make life very difficult for him. And I wonder what the reaction will be to the budget that'll come up in November, we're told, whether or not actually it's popular amongst his own MPs, whether or not it's even passable amongst his own MPs.
Indeed, I think the paradox for Sir Keir Starmer, in my humble opinion, Benedict, is that in order to preserve his premiership and to have any hope of being re-elected in 4 years' time, he needs to shift right. By that specifically, I would suggest he needs to stop the boats unilaterally, reduce legal net migration. He needs to cut public spending because the economy is completely in the red. He needs to ditch woke, which irritates people deeply. And he needs to dilute, if not scrap, net zero. Then there would be hope for him. Those are things that his party won't let him do. What's strange, however, is that the possible candidates to replace him, rather than shifting right, which might save their skin, will inevitably shift the other way and shift even more left-wing, even more big state, more welfarism, more net zero, and more immigration.
I mean, one of the sort of the headline things that some of the candidates have been talking about for deputy leadership, and also that Burnham, I think, has been floating as being popular, is the idea of a wealth tax. And, you know, that's that is very popular amongst lots of very left-wing people, but I think will be met like a cup of cold sick by most people in the country, because, you know, we all understand what this is. And we've also seen, of course, the floated policies about increasing taxes on things like property or death or leaving the country. A lot of this, of course, is the brainchild of Torsten Bell. But it's no question at all that actually what the party wants and what a lot of the supporters want is higher taxes, higher punishment for people, frankly, to offset that massive spending that we currently have. Whereas you're right, actually what the country needs, with 0% growth last month, 0%. They couldn't even pretend with, you know, with the migration figures, it was 0.1. It was actually 0. You know, that's what you need. You need to be getting people out there spending, building, creating things. Net zero, as you say, again, very important. You need to get energy prices back down again. You need to make Britain a hub of energy production, which it used to be. But they are just diametrically opposed to doing these very sensible, very basic things. And that's, you know, that's where we are now. We're stuck with this for potentially several years. And I will just say one more thing. It goes back to before the last election, when you had Tory backbenchers saying, well, maybe what we need, the Conservatives, is a period in opposition to sort of get our act together. And I think that, knowing what they must have known was coming down the track, makes that party as culpable for this as the Labour Party.
Now, today's Dolan Dispatch is all about yesterday's march. Figures are disputed as to how many people were there. Official figures suggest around 100,000. Then we've heard 150, but many of you are saying it's way beyond that. Martin said 1 million people were there. I was present. It was huge. It was a party atmosphere full of men and women of all ages, united in disgust at the entire establishment, not just the Labour Party. Good morning, Mark, says Peter. The fantastic sight of the mainly silent majority marching yesterday was inspiring. After seeing the footage of the numbers, I would estimate nearer to 500,000 people were in attendance. The mainly silent and tolerant majority have spoken, but I doubt it will have any effect on this awful government. I'm 74 and have never experienced a worse bunch of liars, hypocrites and amateurs. Well, what I want to do in the course of the next few hours is I want to take your call if you've been on that march. And I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. So why did you go? How many people were there? What was the atmosphere like? 0344 499 1000. And I also want to hear from you if you're furious about the march and consider those on it to have been racist thugs, because everyone has a view on this show. And I like to have a proper good old ding-dong, good old debate, just like the wonderful late, great Charlie Kirk. That's what we're going to try to do, is channel that remarkable guy in the fact that he wanted to reach out to people and hear all opinions. That's what this show is about. 0344 499 1000. Benedict, stick around if you can. And next up, we've got a caller who went on the march. Don't go anywhere.
That is one of the things that will cause the polls to tighten in a few years as we get closer to a general election, is people, if the NHS is driven up the agenda, that will help Labour out. But if they can't even back this up with any type of meaningful improvements in the NHS and in the waiting list data, they're getting in real trouble. There's a little bit of a caveat here that these do go up and down, winter's coming, waiting lists generally go up then. But again, as you said, he promised real significant progress on this, and whether or not it's a little blip, there still is nothing meaningful happened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A huge debate about how many people were at the Unite the Kingdom march yesterday, led by Tommy Robinson. Tony says, Mark, I'd say at least 200,000 people marched at the Unite the Kingdom protest. The lying police and mainstream media are trembling. Jackie says, 150k? I reckon millions were there. How about this? Hi, Mark. Loving the show, says Paul in Suffolk. 150,000 attending yesterday. Are you serious? Look at the drone footage. There must have been a minimum 500,000 people. It was massive. Don't fall for the legacy media and police estimates. Utter rubbish. Thank you, Mark. And that's Paul in Suffolk. We'll get to more of your texts. Well, my producer, Christian's been looking at footage from The Guardian, no less. So supposedly we could trust The Guardian, because they're never going to overplay how many people were there. And if you look at that footage, it looks approaching as big as the Iraq War demonstration all those years ago, and that was 1 million people in central London. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands. I think we can safely say that. It doesn't matter. The question is, those there, did they represent a silent majority in this country? Mary in Hemel Hempstead was there yesterday. Hello, Mary.
Good morning, Mark.
Very good morning to you. You made it to the march, and it's quite an achievement, Mary, because without being impolite, you're an older citizen, and therefore probably not the easiest thing to get on that march.
Yes, I'm 88, and I went with an electric buggy. My daughter and my grandson came up with me.
Brilliant.
I'm quite convinced there was over 1 million there. Blackfriars, they had to close Blackfriars Bridge and Lambeth Bridge because there were so many people the other side, they couldn't move. Westminster Square was packed solid. The road going up where the march was going to follow was solid. Nobody could move. So it finished up that half of the people were on one side of the river and the other half were on the other. So it was that people were courteous, friendly. The police were courteous and friendly. It was a lovely atmosphere. People were singing. Needless to say, there was the necessary chants as well.
Of course.
It was a wonderful atmosphere, and the pink ladies were there. They were coming. They were sort of people were shaking my hand, videoing me, and it was quite embarrassing, really. But it was a wonderful sight. I was so proud. The flags, they must have been, they were uncountable. There were so many flags, Union Jack flags, the George's flags. It was a wonderful, wonderful atmosphere, the way the people came together.
And Mary, why did you attend the march, given the challenges for you to get down there?
Because I'm sad to see the way the country is going, and it's not going to get better. I blame both Tories and Labour. It's not just Labour, but the Labour Party are definitely putting the nail in the coffin. And that's tragic. I mean, I grew up, I was born before the war. So, and I've seen sort of the things that have happened since then. And nothing like this. We are a very unhappy nation. And there's a lot of cruelty now in the world that's spoken, that's done. And it's just awful. You know, just things are getting worse and not better.
And what are the biggest problems that motivated you to go on the march, Mary? What are your biggest concerns? Because given you've spent your life in this country, I'm guessing, and you've seen it change radically, what worries you?
People getting poorer, the dreadful migration crisis that's happening that seems to be, nobody seems to know how to deal with, the bleeding dry of the working people, really, and the priorities that are being given to foreigners over the British people, whether it be housing, money, you know, the benefits thing. It's just the priorities are all wrong.
And Mary, how do you feel about being labelled far right by The Guardian and The Mirror?
Oh, well, I just ignore it. You see, this is what happens, you see. The problem is that they just can't, nobody can be kind. All they can do is insult one another. If you don't think like we do, then you must be this or that. You're put in a pigeonhole. But I'll tell you something that was very noticeable. The policemen all had, like, the jockey caps on, you know?
Yeah.
And they were not accompanying the people. They were just in various areas because there was no violence. And yet I watch on television the spat between the racist people and the Tommy Robinson marches, and the police there were having to wear crash hats. There were mounted police, and they were wearing riot gear.
Well, exactly. That tells a story. Mary, stay with me. I've got Benedict Spence with me down the line, who's a political commentator. Benedict, that's what we need to do, is hear it from the horse's mouth. Mary's been down there for reasons of, concern about what's happening to the country. She's 88. She's needed assistance to get down there. She doesn't sound that far right to me on the old far right-ometer.
No, clearly not. And the thing is, for a very long time, it's been very easy to paint marches like this by the establishment, by the media. It's been very easy to paint them as far right because there is always a slightly sort of hooligan element at these things. They turn up sort of everywhere. It's the same actually as when you get sort of very left-wing marches, and the Socialist Workers' Party turns up at all of them. You know, it's wrong to say, therefore, that every single one of those is a Socialist Workers' March, but they do turn up. But as I say, it's been very easy to sort of paint, therefore, marches of hundreds of thousands of people, potentially in this case, who say, look, it's about the state of the country, it's about a sense of belonging, it's about identity, ours rather than other people's, and actually it's about being considered voiceless. And I think it is important that we're able to break that narrative, therefore, and the politicians and journalists aren't just able to go, oh, well, they've got the St. George's flag, that means that they're all racist. I think that is happening. I think it's harder now for them to just dismiss it out of hand as far right. I still think they will try to do that, almost certainly. We saw that yesterday. There were plenty of attempts to do so. It doesn't help when there are some people who turn up and they cause a bit of trouble. But when you've got hundreds of thousands of people all behaving relatively well, actually, I think it does a lot to shift the tone of the conversation.
Benedict, really enjoyed your company this morning. Let's catch up soon. My thanks to the excellent political commentator, Benedict Spence. Mary, before you go...
Yes?
Yesterday I was listening to Talk, and on the news bulletin it was revealed that there were 9 arrests. Now, my great worry is that there would be hundreds of arrests, there would be carnage, there'd be riots, and I would have been worried about that because then a sort of sensible patriotic movement would have been hijacked and all bad headlines. It didn't happen, did it? So 9 arrests as of yesterday. The latest figure is 25 arrests for what may have been 200,000 or 300,000 people. That is a peaceful protest, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, it's just the proportions. I mean, for so many people, and I don't care what they say, I'm quite convinced there was over 1 million people there, because, as I say, half were on one side of the river and half were on the other. And since when did there's so many people that they had to close 2 bridges to stop them getting together?
Mary, more power to you, and thank you so much for telling us about your trip into central London yesterday, and give me a call again soon. I'm taking more calls across the next 2.5 hours from people that were on the march. 0344 499 1000. Susan in Nottingham, we're going to catch up with her very shortly. But if you went on the march, tell me why. And if you're furious about the march, and if you are worried that it was the far right rearing its ugly head, then I'm going to put you on the show and I'm going to let you express your view, because this programme is all about opinions and it's all about yours. 0344 499 1000. Many people think that Reform UK are the answer to Britain's problems, although former Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe, who's a respected figure, is on record as saying that if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister, he will let people down. Is he right? I'll be asking a prominent member of Reform UK next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, the highly respected former Reform MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe, has said that if Nigel Farage, Freudian slip, if Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister, he will let people down. Is he right? Let's get the views of Alex Wilson, who is a Reform UK London Assembly member. Alex, happy Sunday to you, sir.
Good morning, Mark. Great to be with you.
Have you had your full English yet?
No, I've just had a shower and got up, and but I thought I'd come and speak to you before
Wait a minute. Let's just. Sorry, so it's going to go very Radio 4 Today programme now. I'm going to do a gotcha. You're calling yourself a Reform UK London Assembly member, and you've not had a full English this morning.
Not yet.
It's coming.
Sure
it's coming. You get your bangers and your rashers. Listen, can we just? I want to get to this France deal, one in, one out. Will it work? This is Prime Minister's new project. Starts tomorrow. We'll get to that in a moment. But Rupert Lowe, who I'm sure you consider still in high regard, is no longer part of the Reform UK political project. But he has said that if Nigel Farage is elected Prime Minister, he will let people down. Is he right?
Absolutely not. What Nigel is trying to do is build a broad political party that can take power through the next elections and then deliver for the country. We've had 14 years of failure under the Conservatives, 15 months of failure under Labour. We've got one shot to save this country, and Nigel is going to do that. And it's really sad what's happened with Rupert and with Ben and other people, but fundamentally we're on a mission here to save the country. We've got to get Nigel into Downing Street, and you've either got to kind of get on board or get out of the way. I'm confident in Nigel's ability to do this. Every time I see him now, I mean, I've known him for a little while, but every time I see him now, you see that kind of sense of determination in his eyes. He knows that we've got a real shot at doing this, but he also knows that coming with that is a huge kind of pressure and an obligation to get it right, and he's 100% committed to that challenge, and I'm absolutely sure that he will deliver, because it's not just about people who are involved in politics. We want to bring into the team people who've got real experience in the real world and who run businesses, who've worked in public services, worked in the armed forces, served our country with distinction, and use that as a way of making sure we've got people in there from day one who are able to make decisions and get things done, because the stakes are so high now. It's too important to mess up.
Although the challenge of politics is to under-promise and over-deliver, is there a danger that whilst well-intentioned, a lot of the Reform UK policies just aren't going to happen? So, for example, scrapping the 2-child benefit cap for a good portion of families in this country, the plan to reduce tax to the extent that the first 20,000 of your income is untaxed, all very costly policies. Stopping the boats, is a British government really going to turn dinghies around in the Channel, leading to casualties? You've also got the concern about the blob, the civil service, woke lawyers, essentially stifling the reform project. Is there a real danger of over-promising and under-delivering?
Well, that's something we've got to be very, very careful about and very mindful of, and make sure that as we approach the election, our manifesto, our promises are properly costed and worked through, because we need to deliver them.
Why aren't they costed now? Was this dreamt up in a pub after a few pints of old speckled hen?
We're 3 or 4 years away, 3 years away from the general election. The work is underway. There will be a huge amount of detail that goes behind that. And as we get closer to the election, the policies will be brought forward and announced, and they will have to be costed, because I know we will have far greater level of scrutiny from the media, from the other parties, from the CBI, from all these people that are out to get us, effectively, have far greater scrutiny than we had at the last election, justifiably so, because of where we are in the polls, and we have to make it add up. So that process is ongoing, and I'm absolutely confident that we will not go down that route that you suggest of over-promising and under-delivering. Quite the reverse. And yes, there will be challenges. Obviously, we don't know how much worse the economic situation will be. That the longer this Labour government goes on, the longer Rachel Reeves taxes everything to oblivion, the harder it's going to be to find the money. And also, you mentioned the blob, the civil service. Absolutely, big problem for any government getting its will through the civil service. So that's why we want to bring in people not just into the cabinet, but also into the highest levels of the civil service, who are effectively political appointees who believe in what we would be doing, so they can set that tone from the very top of the department and get on board or get out the way. That's what we've got to do. It takes bold action. It takes bold leadership.
It's going to take time, isn't it? I mean, really, reform would need 2 terms to make a difference, wouldn't they?
Well, we need to win big and get a big mandate, and then hopefully that will extend into a second term, and then we'll see where we go. But we absolutely have to be ready to hit the ground from day one, because people are looking for something different. They're looking for change. They're fed up with the failure of both the Conservatives and now the Labour Party, and it's incumbent on us to make sure we reflect that and we deliver when we get in. But to do that, we will need a majority. It's no good having a hung parliament. We'll need a majority. We'll need a big mandate, and we'll need some big people involved to make these decisions and get things moving again.
But I don't think we need reform, do we? We've actually got a Labour government that's going to stop the boats. Here's a front-page headline in the Telegraph today. First Channel migrants to be sent back to France tomorrow in Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with France. Problem solved. You can go back to your full English.
Well, I completely disagree with that. This is a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the numbers that have been coming. We've had, over 31,000 already this year. This gimmick is going to send 100 people back in this first go, and it's time limited. The French can pick and choose who they accept, and in return, we have to accept an equal number coming back the other way. One in, one out. It's not stopping the boats. It's just moving chess pieces around the board in a very, very tiny way compared to the overall scale of the problem. And we've got this problem. It has ballooned under both the Conservatives and now under the Labour government. We've had over 50,000 crossings since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. He talks about smashing the gangs, but the only thing he's smashing is the records and the reputation for competence of this country to defend its own borders.
How ironic, Alex, that Lib Dem and Green councils are housing the fewest asylum seekers, despite backing what is effectively Britain's open border experiment.
Yeah, it's hilarious. When I saw those figures, I think it's Lee Anderson has been doing some research and publicised these figures to show that, as you say, Lib Dem councils and Green-led councils are the worst at actually taking these migrants in and providing them with shelter and accommodation. And it's pure hypocrisy from those on the left, which we always get, and particularly the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems are always the biggest hypocrites in local politics. They're the ones that oppose housing developments, oppose things like reservoirs, and then complain that we haven't got the infrastructure to support new development. Well, it's because they block it. They get in the way because they are the biggest bunch of NIMBYs going. And on this particular issue, it's not surprising, but it is quite staggering, really, that those that claim to be the most welcoming are actually turning out to be the opposite.
Well, it reminded me of when the brilliant governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, shipped a load of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, which is a sort of luxury paradise of America's sort of left-wing progressive elite. And I think the migrants lasted about half a day before being bussed out.
Perhaps that's what we need to do here. We need to deliberately transfer them to those areas, Oxfordshire, Cambridgeshire, wherever, that are Lib Dem heartlands, and then they can get a taste of what everyone else has been having to put up with.
Brilliant idea, and maybe open a migrant hotel next door to Gary Lineker.
Well, absolutely, and if he thinks that refugees are welcome, then it's time that he did his bit to take some on board himself.
Definitely, he's got a nice big house, and what they can do is he can let them in and not have passports or any checks on their criminal history or anything like that. Just come into the house and nothing to see here. What about this story about the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, claims to be environmentalist, but the facts would appear to be the opposite of the case.
Again, this is just pure hypocrisy from the left. Sadiq Khan is obsessed with net zero. He actually spends more of his budget as Mayor of London, £1.4 billion, on net zero than he contributes to the policing budget, just £1.1 billion.
Wow.
It's the thing that he is really obsessed about, and he does it because he wants to look good in front of his C40 mates, and that's his prerogative. But ultimately, you've seen he's jetting around the world, going to climate conferences, flying there, racking up the air miles, taking big teams of people with him. And it's very much the kind of, do as I say, not as I do. One rule for him, everyone else needs to suffer. And he's against the third runway at Heathrow, potentially wanting to fund a judicial review, wasting London taxpayers' money on trying to block that. But at the same time, he's quite happy to go jetting around the world instead of practicing what he preaches. If he really thought that the so-called climate crisis was this existential threat to humanity, then I'm sure all these jollies that he goes on could be held over Zoom.
Now, of course, he would argue as the Mayor of London that climate change and global warming is a settled scientific fact, and that we need to tackle it in order to preserve our economy and indeed our future. But it's all about opinions, isn't it? Before I let you go, Alex, briefly, if you can, how many people on the march yesterday, the Unite the Kingdom march, do you reckon were Reform voters?
I'd imagine quite a few. What the march yesterday showed was it was a real manifestation of patriotism and frustration in equal measure. People feeling let down about the way the country has been governed and looking for a way to have their view heard. And whether that's by taking part in the march yesterday, whether it's by raising the colours and flying flags in your own community, whether it's by taking part in protests against the migrant hotels, or whether it's by voting Reform. All those ways are perfectly valid and strong ways to express your view. The march yesterday was very, very largely peaceful. I mean, even Sadiq Khan, who we've just been talking about, acknowledged that it was very, very largely peaceful. Yes, there were a handful of arrests, which is always unfortunate, but by and large, it was people going out there wanting to have their say. And yes, many of them will be Reform voters, and I hope they will continue to be Reform voters. We've seen how well we're doing in the polls. We've seen how well we're doing in winning council by-elections, another 4 gains this week. But ultimately, what we're trying to do as a political party is win power through the ballot box, and that's what we're building. Building a team, building branches, getting results up and down the country. And as we head towards that general election, we will go into that election with a detailed, fully costed policy platform that I hope the majority of people in the country can get behind.
But Alex, why didn't your boss, Nigel Farage, mention the march yesterday in his X feed? And also, why didn't you post about it? Are you ashamed of those people, or indeed do you consider Tommy Robinson to be too problematic to be associated with?
Well, it's a balancing act, isn't it? And when we know how these things will get talked about if we do that. But look, other people have tweeted. David Bull has tweeted pictures from it, and others have been involved. I was driving most of the day yesterday, so I wasn't able to use my phone while I was driving, obviously, because you wouldn't want me to break the law. You have to ask Nigel what his views are. Ask him directly. But no, look, this is part of a wider situation where people are fed up with how things are going in our country, and whether it's by taking part in protests, whether it's by voting, whether it's by raising the flag and being proud of what we are as a country and what we stand for, all valid ways for people to get involved and demand change, because, my God, we need it.
Alex, what a treat to see you. I will now treat you to a full English next time I'm in the same pub or restaurant as you, because, of course, it is the perfect way to start the day. I really enjoyed our conversation. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to Alex Wilson, Reform UK London Assembly member. Your reaction 0344 499 1000. Next up, I'm going to speak to someone else that was on the march today, and they've got strong reasons as to why they went, plus more on the tragic fallout from the murder of Charlie Kirk and how it's going down in America. That's next.
Peter Mandelson was His Majesty's ambassador, His Majesty's envoy. Trump was thinking of it more as the royals rather than a kind of political appointment and kind of Westminster politics. So I think he's pretty unhappy at how domestic political opinion and Labour Party internal pressures have forced the removal of someone he quite liked. So I think that's put a downer on it. And of course, every time we've had one of these visits, Alex, we think the whole question is, will the kind of Trump-Stummer relationship blow up? We've had a couple now. I think it's taken the sting out of it. But right now, it seems that there could potentially be some flare-up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
How about this from John in Angus? Mark, the people on that march yesterday are very much the tip of the iceberg. Let's say, let's have a look at this. What is it? There was one going on one going on in Dundee as well, and I'm sure there were many others in parts of the country across the UK. What about the million who marched peacefully? Elon Musk speaking out, rape gang victims, and the wonderful patriotic vibe. I was so proud. Shame on the BBC. OK, look, let's get to a voice note on this march. Don't forget, it's the topic of the Dolan Dispatch in just 10 minutes' time. You won't want to miss it. But let's have a listen to Mark, who attended yesterday's march. Take it away, Mark.
Good morning, Mark. It's Mark in Lancashire. Why is it that with the Unite the Kingdom rally now, many of the left-wing rag newspapers and the mainstream media, the establishment media, they're quite willing to brand everybody with the same brush that was on the Unite the Kingdom march, you know, maybe 500,000, 1 million people, they're all far right. But when it comes to these pro-Palestine rallies, when somebody like me says, oh, they're supporting Hamas, oh, no, they're not all supporting Hamas. You can't say that. They're just normal people that's against war. They don't want the killing of children. They're not terrorist supporters. Well, I think they are. They're terrorist supporters. Oh, no, they're not. No, you can't say that. So it's blatant two-tier, isn't it? You can see it. They're quite willing to brand hundreds of thousands of people with one brush, tar us all with one brush, because we're on the opposite side of the argument to them. That's just how it is.
Mark, what a brilliant and powerful voice note. Thank you so much for it. Susan in Nottingham attended the march yesterday. She joins us now. Hello, Susan.
Good morning.
Top of the morning to you. Why did you go, Susan?
Well, I felt that boots on the ground has to be done. I'm a patriot of the United Kingdom, and we all need to stand together. And it was a peaceful march. The flags were flying high. The behaviour was well, and everything Mary said earlier on your show was just the way people feel. We're fed up with being let down, with the boat people, the hotels, all the freebies. This government, it needed us all to stand together yesterday to send a message.
And what was that message, Susan?
The message was that we are fed up with the way the country is being taken down. We're a laughingstock on the world stage, and it's got to stop. It's not good.
Do you have any hope that real change is coming, Susan? Will yesterday's march work?
Let's hope so. The march was not about, it wasn't a Tommy Robinson show. It was the UK people, the ordinary working people who are still working, feel that they needed to send a message to London, to the government, that we're not happy.
What was the atmosphere like?
Wonderful. It was fun. There were families, there were young people, there were elderly people, people in wheelchairs, disabled people. It was a whole complete mix.
And I observed that also that there were people of colour on the march too, that it was actually a diverse group, ironically.
Yes, of course. Yes. We're all together.
And what about trouble?
United Kingdom to come together.
What about trouble? Because there's a great debate about how many people were there. Conservatively, 100,000. Others are saying 500,000. But even if it was 100K, Susan, 25 arrests, while obviously reprehensible, 25 arrests is a tiny number. Demonstrated this was a peaceful protest.
Yes. And whatever those arrests, if there is that number, you would be gaslighting as to what they were arrested for. The establishment stopped the actual programme of events from finishing early. Andrew Bridgen, Young Bob, they all couldn't speak at the very end of the March for Freedom event, the United Kingdom, and a lot of that was to do, we were all saying, it was because of Charlie Kirk. They don't want free speech.
Is it reasonable to say, Susan, that whilst the majority were peaceful protesters, that there were some thugs there and that there were some racists? Would you accept that principle, Susan?
No, I never saw anything, and I was amongst the big crowd. We were all marching peacefully. And if there was, well, goodness knows who incited that. But no, it was generally everyone is of the same mind. Let's unite the kingdom. We don't need people coming protesting at these events. It is purely the United Kingdom people just having a voice for the government to stand up, watch what is happening.
And if you don't mind me saying, Susan, although you sound incredibly youthful, I believe you are in your in your 7th decade.
Yes.
Can I ask you how, from your point of view, how the country has changed in your lifetime? Could you describe it to those that maybe think that this is all prejudice and it's about hating foreigners?
No, it's vastly changed. Too many people coming in, not earning a job, taking everything that people that were born in the 50s, 60s and 70s have worked hard for. We see people getting houses, living together, and it's not fair for the people that were born here of that era, the 50s and 60s and 70s. Those age groups of people who have been to work every day, they've got up early, they've done a job, and they just can walk in and everything's free. Well,
I think I agree with you, because my point is that if you come to the country, you have to do 3 things, which is you have to work, you have to speak the language, and
absolutely,
you have to participate in our culture, follow our rules and laws and traditions. Those are the 3. And the issue we've got is that immigration used to be like that, and it's not like that anymore.
No, I would agree entirely.
Because if people achieve those 3 things, I think there will be a lot less hostility to immigration. Do you not think?
Yes, but equally there's far too many coming over that we don't know where they're from and we don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I would have thought at this stage in your life, Susan, I guess what you're thinking about is future generations. That's really the battle, isn't it?
Yes, for our children, and I don't have grandchildren, but for people that do, it's a worrying time. Goodness knows where we're going to be in 20 years if this continues.
Susan, what a great conversation. Really grateful that you've joined us. Will you call me again, 03444991000? Were you on the march yesterday? Give me a call. Are you angry about the march, and are you horrified at what you see as the rise of the far right? It's all about opinions, so I want to hear yours. 03444991000. And also, how many people were there? Was it 100,000? Was it 1 million? Will we ever get to the truth? Well, talking about the truth, I'll be dropping some truth bombs in my Dolan dispatch in just 2 minutes' time, and I'm not pulling my punches. Yes, folks, the monologue is back, and that march yesterday was the tip of the iceberg. That's the Dolan dispatch. Get the kettle on. I'll see you in 2.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sent his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A very happy Sunday morning to all of you. A big 2 hours to go. This is your full English in broadcast form, and things are getting worse for Sir Keir Starmer, who, it's been revealed, hired Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington without proper checks, casting significant doubts on the Prime Minister's competence and judgment. No sugar Sherlock! Stop the press! Also, Rachel Reeves' planned rise in taxes will cost more than they raise, says the world's leading economics expert. Just how broke is Britain? And the first Channel migrants are to be deported on flights back to France as early as tomorrow under Sir Keir Starmer's one-in, one-out deal with France. Will it work? Are you convinced? 0344 499 1000. And it is Sunday, so we're going to have some fun. Let's enjoy ourselves. We're going to set you up for a cracking day as you enjoy the final few hours of your weekend. The sun is shining over the capital. I hope it's sunny where you are. We've got a lot to get through. And your opinions are my priority, so book your place on the show. 0344 499 1000. Send me a text. Let's get to work and let's talk. And yes, folks, the monologue is back. Let's start with the Dolan Dispatch. What is nationhood? Well, it is shared history, it's shared values, it's a shared language. it's community, it's family. What we've seen in the last 3 decades in the United Kingdom and across the West has been an assault on the very concept of nationhood. We've seen the demonisation of our nation's flag, which for woke university-educated metropolitan types is a shorthand for the far right, but which for millions of ordinary people is a symbol of a country increasingly unrecognisable, a country fast disappearing. Now, with the Commonwealth and our colonial past, Britain has always been a global nation. It's always been outward looking, and it remains the most tolerant, welcoming country on earth. But that tolerance has been tested and it has been abused. Now, when I was a kid growing up in the 1980s, there were no serious objections to immigration whatsoever. People overseas entered this country legally in their thousands, not millions, in their thousands per year, an amount which was manageable and which was gradual enough to foster integration. But 1 million people entering the country legally in 1 year, which is where we got to, is an extraordinary act of national self-harm. We don't have the houses, we don't have the roads, we don't have the schools, we don't have the hospitals, we don't have the GP surgeries, and we certainly don't have the money. One particular statistic that ought to stop you in your tracks is that 1 in 60 people, okay, 1 in 60 people in this country arrived here last year, and 1 in 25 in the last 4 years. Large-scale mass legal immigration is a deliberate policy that strikes at the heart of the idea of nationhood. Mass immigration is the theft of a nation from its own people. And did anyone vote for this? Did you vote for this? Now, the correct level of immigration has been a huge net positive for this country over the years. In the NHS, in the care sector, across industry, commerce, you name it. I myself am the son of immigrants. So no doubt that many of you are as well, or you know someone who is. My parents were Irish immigrants who understood what a privilege it was to become a British citizen. And whilst not losing touch with their Irish roots and their Catholicism, they strained every sinew to contribute to this country and to become British. But in recent years, we've seen a different kind of immigration, in which there is no effort to learn the language, no engagement with the culture, and in some cases, a contempt for the rule of law. Now, a multi-ethnic country is what we have, and that's not a problem. It's the idea of Britishness at its heart, connected to a multi-ethnic society, is what we're aiming for. Okay, we're multi-ethnic, but we're all British. That is what we're aiming for. But what we have is multiculturalism. And multiculturalism is something very different to a multi-ethnic society. Because multiculturalism is a myth, it's an experiment, and it's ultimately a lie. Because it implies that you don't have to assimilate, you don't have to learn the language, you don't have to participate in the culture, and in some cases, you don't even have to follow the law. It's led to ghettoized communities where people live in parallel to the existing population. This, combined with the absolute horror show of illegal immigration, which will see at this rate upwards of 250,000 people enter the country illegally in the course of this parliament. And if you combine those two things, you have a powder keg. Now, is Tommy Robinson an unsavoury character with a criminal past? Is he the right person to be the figurehead of discontent about our rapidly changing country? Who knows? You tell me what you think. Some people love him, some people hate him, some people won't touch him with a barge pole. 03444991000. I don't know, so you tell me. But it is the abject failure of the political establishment that presented him with this opportunity. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care who speaks for the public, as long as the public have a voice. You see, elections don't seem to work, because promises to cut immigration to sensible levels have been made for the last 3 decades. And Brexit, which was meant to be the ultimate fix, has seen numbers explode under Boris Johnson and his Boris wave. which is why people are now exploding themselves. They're exploding in anger, and rightly so. They're not stupid. They've seen their country change, and they've seen it change for the worst. We're getting poorer. And particularly in relation to illegal immigration, women and children are provably less safe. I'm so sorry, but the statistics don't lie. There's gang violence, there's ethnic civil wars breaking out within our once great cities. This is not a coherent and happy society at ease with itself anymore. Britain is on alert, it's on edge. The UK, once the most successful society in the history of the world, is now facing a crisis of identity, sparked by wicked and egregiously stupid policies from a woke political class cheered on by establishment media outlets who told us in an almost religious mantra that diversity is our strength. Now, diversity of background is no problem. As I mentioned, multi-ethnic society, not an issue. Multicultural society, huge problem. So diversity of background is not the issue as long as there is a singularity of culture. And to sum that up in a word, it is Britishness. And what is that? Some politicians, they struggle. They get all sweaty on the radio when they're asked, what is Britishness? Well, I don't struggle to tell you what Britishness is. It's freedom, it's democracy, it's having a pint with your mates and a laugh and a politically incorrect joke. It's fair play, it's hard work, it is self-responsibility, it's enterprise, tolerance, respect for women as equals, it's good humour, and it's having an open mind. It's just being a good person. That is Britishness. Greedy corporations benefited from the cheap labour of mass immigration over the years, and our bloated and inefficient public sector has been more than happy to prop up our crumbling public services with workers from abroad rather than training up our own. And the deeply unaffordable culture of welfarism means that the existing population are being sent a clear message: it doesn't pay to work. We'll just fill the gaps with immigration instead. The Britain we once knew and loved, and that the world admired, is disappearing before our very eyes. I don't care even who gets in 4 years' time, as long as they drastically change the direction of the country. If Keir Starmer can do it, happy days. I don't care who does it. Kemi Badenoch, or whoever is in charge of the Lib Dems these days. Ed Davey, with his, log flume and all the rest of it. I don't care who runs the country, as long as we change its direction. Because right now we face a societal, a cultural and an economic national security crisis, the like of which we've never seen before. There is a fight for Britain itself, folks. There are millions of people out there that want their country back. Failure to listen to them will have dire consequences. Nationhood, community, family, history, culture, tradition, flag. How hard can it be? If we don't save Britain now, it will be lost forever. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. Particularly give me a call if you disagree. I'll get to your call and text in a moment. But let's now speak to the former Conservative Government Advisor, James Price. James, welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. And James, I actually don't care who wins the next election, as long as they change the direction of travel, because right now it ain't working.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that what we're actually seeing at the moment with the rise of reform, my party, the Conservatives, sort of struggling to meet it in some areas, actually outflanking it now in other areas. Nigel Farage saying that Robert Jenrick is to the right of him on immigration, and a different kind of debate happening on the nature of the economy, which will need to have a strong economy if we're going to right the ship in the way that you described. So I think actually what we're seeing on the right, at least, is quite a healthy debate back and forth. We all know, being listeners and viewers of this show, that debate is such a useful and such a necessary, crucial thing in order to tease out the best ideas. And if the Reform Party and the Conservatives are sort of tussling with each other on the way towards a more robust and sensible set of policies, that's a great thing. The only danger, of course, then, is if they can't come to either some kind of victory of one over the other, some kind of election coalition accord or something, the only way that the left manages to sneak back in. So that's the thing in a year or two I think we'll need to keep watch for.
Most definitely. Where are the Conservatives in this conversation about the direction of the country? For example, if a Conservative politician had appeared on the platform yesterday at the march, I doubt they'd get a warm reception.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I do think that the kind of constant criticism of 14 years is unfair. People have short memories and won't try and defend everything. But when that first coalition government came in 2010, the scale of the deficit, that is the amount of money that we were spending more than we were bringing in, was so absolutely eye-watering that it would have completely bankrupted and crushed the country forever. That was the Labour economic legacy. And so it did take a long time to sort that out. Then we had Brexit and all that. Then we had COVID and we had Ukraine. And we don't like to think about the cost of the lockdowns, of paying people not to work. We don't like to think about the cost of extra energy, because at the same time that the Russia-Ukraine war has massively spiked energy costs, we've done all this mad net zero to make it even worse, which has been destructive again for the economy and therefore for people's living standards. So there were a lot of challenges and there were good things that the Tories did, but I think that the number one issue today that all the polling suggests, which is immigration, is something that Boris Johnson completely and utterly failed on. He just, I think, took his eye off the ball, or maybe worse, there's a report that he said he just wanted the Financial Times and the sort of lefty journalists to like him again, and therefore what he had to do was to just open the floodgates. And that is a legacy that the Conservative Party will need to reckon with and apologise for and continue to apologise for, because we got that completely wrong.
Is there any conceivable sense that the Conservatives, though part of the problem, particularly the Boris wave, are in any way part of the solution?
I absolutely think that we, whatever you want to call it, are. I think a kind of
How long is it going to be we before you move to reform, James?
Look, I think you took
in the course of this interview.
Yeah, 10, 9, 8. You had a great monologue there talking about one of the great British virtues being loyalty. So let's see what happens there. I do think that the kind of zeal of reform is so exciting, all that kind of energy and switching people on. And it turns out that reform voters are actually more politically engaged than voters of other parties when you look at the polling. But the Conservatives who are still kicking around and still have fight in us, people like Robert Jenrick, a great new MP called Katie Lamb, and there are others I won't bother listing, but who are good as well, have got the scars on our back from being inside government and fighting the blob, which I think is the number one problem and the number one reason why Britain is suffering so much. For people who are watching the live stream, you might see a big hairy bloke with a moustache and a bit of beard. Actually, I was a young girl with a dream when I first started dealing with the blob, and you can see what it's done to me.
Listen, you're still very fetching, let me tell you, in your Sunday apparel, although I hoped you'd wear a suit, but there you go, it is the Lord's Day. What about then reforms plans with regard to, for example, illegal immigration? Is it convincing?
I think that the devil's going to be in the detail on these things, right? Politics can be very exciting when you get to stand up and make a big tub-thumping speech and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, the really boring bit that most people don't want to pay any attention to is what the detail looks like. And have reform got people with the patience and the skills and the experience to write the actual legislation, to write the policy papers, and then to have the people who've got actual executive experience? I'm sure there are lots of people listening to this who've run businesses large and small, who know what it's like to actually get a team of people to perform a task. Actually quite difficult to do that. And people in the civil service are no good at that. Most politicians are no good at that. MPs normally have only got the experience of kind of 3 or 4 people in their office in Westminster, so that a lot of them don't have executive experience. So for the reforms, illegal immigration, legal immigration, economic policies, same as for the Tories, same as we're seeing Labour completely failing on every front now, have they got the skills and have they got the ability to pull people together and work on the detail? Where are we going to send these people back to? Because it will mean making a deal with the Taliban, for example. Now, are people willing to stomach that? Are we willing to have that conversation? The Taliban now in complete control of Afghanistan. Lots of Afghans who are here. Some should be, because they did so much brave work helping our soldiers out there. Plenty, I'm sure, shouldn't be. Are we going to stomach and make a deal with the Taliban? Are we going to make a deal with other countries? Are we going to use the heft and muscle we've got of threatening sanctions, of withdrawing visas, of withdrawing definitely foreign aid from countries who don't take back the murderers and paedophiles and all the rest of it who are in this country? Have we got the stomach to do that? Have we got the stomach to successfully and cleverly leave all of the nature of the ECHR and take it away from our domestic laws that Tony Blair wrote into our domestic laws for a long time, right? People might start switching off now because it sounds a bit more dull, but that's the kind of detail that Reform and other parties are going to have to get to grips with, because otherwise the civil service is going to eat them alive.
James, before I go, you've made quite a splash on social media this week, not just with your pinned post about the wonderful wedding to your lovely wife, which happened in March of this year. Many congratulations. I hope you're still on speaking terms.
She hasn't left me yet.
There you go. Don't forget the anniversary is what I'd say. But more importantly, no, of course, nothing's more important than that. But you've made headlines because it's my understanding you are a former president of the Oxford Union. Is that correct?
That is correct,
right,
yes.
And of course the Oxford Union is a venerated platform for political debate which represents and welcomes all views and the competition of ideas. Now, the incoming president of the Oxford Union is a man who was caught on WhatsApp and Instagram celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. And you've made a significant intervention in this. Tell me more.
Yeah, so it's a sad thing, and I wish it never had to happen. I was the secretary of the charitable trust that owns the union's buildings. It's an amazing group of people. But what we've seen in the union in recent years, all kinds of scandals, which has never been far away from the union. You can pick up any newspaper and see some kind of scandal. But you've seen undergraduates and graduates trying to get involved in the politics of this place, knowing that it's newsworthy, knowing that it's this kind of great British institution, and trying to launder that reputation or deliberately damage it in order to burnish their own left-wing radical credentials. People say, I'm going to decolonize the Oxford Union and all this sort of stuff. And I just think that we need to be more robust on those sorts of people. We need to be more robust on those people across all institutions. These are people who just don't care about those institutions that, again, in your great monologue, Mark, you talked about that help bolster and big up this country. Because if you don't have strong institutions, whether it's debate societies or whether it's the BBC or the Church of England, then you have the state getting involved. And the state, as we know, is nothing more than a jackboot very often, standing on the human face forever. And what this kid said, he's a 20-year-old man, I shouldn't call him a kid, he debated Charlie Kirk in the Oxford Union just a few months ago. He got his behind handed to him by Charlie Kirk, by the way. It was pathetic. I think my dress this morning is a little too casual. This guy rocked up in slippers. He lost the debate. He wouldn't shake Charlie Kirk's hand. And then the guy gets murdered. And this idiot is on social media saying, let's go, this is great, lol, ha, 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 and things like that. And instead of apologising, he's doubled down twice, saying what I said was not any worse than what Charlie Kirk has actually said, and he was anti-Palestine and anti-this, that, and the other. So it's just ironic that he was murdered. And you cannot have the president of the world's most famous debating society glorifying in the political assassination of a debater. It's just unconscionable.
Indeed. So he loses his post in an ideal world from your point of view as president of the Oxford Union incoming. However, should he be chucked out of Oxford University, which is the view of Liz Truss?
No, I don't think so. I think that whilst you have to have a defence of, as I say, institutions and freedom of assembly, that these places should organise better to not give someone such a prestigious position. People like Boris Johnson and Michael Gove and a load of other people who've gone on to become Prime Minister were president of the Oxford Union, and people, when they go and visit, can see Einstein and Mother Teresa on the walls and things like that. So there's the kind of prestige there, and I think it would be a good thing for this person not to be in charge of it and to face the consequences like that. But I hope then that he could quietly slink off somewhere and actually maybe read a few books, because from everything I've heard about him debating, glorifying in political retaliation, in violent retaliation and things like that, what he desperately needs is a decent education. I think that he should go away and think about what he's done and think about the kind of person he's turning into. And hopefully we can show some societal grace at that point to see if he's learned from his mistakes.
Definitely, because I think he's coming across at the moment as a brainless narcissist. Unfortunately, there are many in our midst. You're not one of them, James. James, send my best to Mrs. Price and give her a perfect Sunday, and we'll catch up soon. Former Conservative government advisor James Price. Is there any sense in which the Tories are part of the solution to Britain's problems? I doubt that there'll be a stampede of callers to support that view, but let me know if you're one of them. And big response to the Dolan dispatch. Carol says, Mark, that was an excellent Dolan's dispatch. Just the sort of accurate, meaningful, inspirational speech we need. This country must get its strength, pride and determination back. But we can do it, but we need a voice, a big voice. Brilliant monologue, says Francis in Sussex. Totally agree with everything you said. Well, if you disagree, let me know as well. 03444991000. Next up, I've got two strong voices in the studio, and I'll be asking, was yesterday's march the tip of the iceberg? Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, the left is advocating for violence. They're celebrating violence. We've seen this. We've seen posts with hundreds of thousands of likes glorifying the death of Charlie Kirk. And what has Charlie done?
But that's the reason why he was shot, because of this horrendous what's going on. People, they're calling him far right. They're saying that you're fascist Nazis, and this results in people with low IQs shooting him.
Charlie had conversations with people who had differing opinions, and he had civil conversations.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A big debate about how many people were on the Unite the Kingdom march yesterday. Kevin in Stafford says, Mark, how many people are there on Wembley Way at any one time on Cup final day? 50,000? How long is that space? How much longer were the lines of people shown on the drone footage from The Guardian? From Whitehall to near to Elephant and Castle. Work the numbers out from that. BBC and other media are liars. How about this, Jeff in France? Morning, guys. Why didn't one Reform MP show up at the rally yesterday? Well, we've been talking about that. And Nigel Farage hasn't mentioned it on his X feed either. And you know that he spends a lot of time on social media. Is there a story there? And Alan says, Mark, I'm 76, and in all my adult life, it's been the Tories and Labour, Labour and the Tories. And look at the state of the country. Can reform be any worse? Maybe. But let's give them a try. I'll get to more messages in just a moment and your calls. Were you on the march? Let me know why you went. Today, we're going to debate all these issues with the brilliant Sebastian Salek, who is a Labour councillor, and the marvellous Chloe Dobbs, who is a Conservative commentator. Sebastian, do you think that the 100, 200, 300,000 people that were there yesterday Are they the tip of the iceberg or just a rabble of cranks?
I think it tells us what we already know, in that people are hurting in this country. I don't really think we've recovered from the financial crisis in this country. And if you are somebody who was working then, the chances are your pay hasn't really gone up much in real terms since. And there's no single entity or individual who can take the blame for that. That's a problem for all of us to fix. And I think what we saw yesterday was a symptom of that, really. It's people saying, I'm hurting, my living standards haven't improved. And I think every politician in this country, whoever you are, whatever party you represent, that is the message you should be taking away from that.
OK, now, the economic issues in the country are definitely a big factor, aren't they, Chloe? But is that the only story?
No, absolutely not. Immigration plays a big part, and I think people feel really disenfranchised because they have been asking at the ballot box time and again and again and again, please lower both legal and illegal migration, and it just hasn't happened. So hence they felt the need to take to the streets and make their voice heard. And it's also, you saw so many British flags and St George's crosses yesterday, and that, a lot of that is a backlash to this, you know, this narrative that we've been told that the British flag is racist and we should be ashamed of it, even though in other countries it's completely normal to fly your country's flag everywhere. And so many people turned out. I mean, the numbers anywhere between 100,000 and 3 million from the sounds of everything that we're hearing. I have no idea, but there are a lot
more than 100k, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and I think what happened is so many people went there who are maybe not staunch Tommy Robinson supporters, but are just people who are patriotic and are fed up about issues like immigration, the migrant hotels, and the cost of living crisis and all sorts. They're just fed up for many different reasons.
Do you take Sebastian's point that actually, if people were not struggling with the cost of living, this march would be less likely to happen, that it's predominantly just the fact that people can't feed their families and live a good life?
I think that exacerbates it. I think that immigration and this attack on patriotism and the flag is a big part of it, but it definitely exacerbates it. And one reason for that is because, for example, with the migrant hotels, which have been massively in the news because of Epping and other places recently, there is this frustration when people see, oh, somebody is up in a hotel who's come here illegally and they get all their meals paid for them. They don't have to struggle to pay their bills, but I'm at home counting the pennies together to try and put food on the table for my kids. I think that really exacerbates that frustration about the migrant hotels and the perks that they get.
Sebastian, I take your point about people's economic circumstances, which I think fundamentally are number one on the top of the list, because if you go to the supermarket and you're thinking, how am I going to pay for this milk, this bread, and how am I going to purchase school uniform for my kids, there's nothing more pressing than that. By the way, that's before you've got to rent or the mortgage. But are you not glossing over the national identity aspect of this and the cultural side?
Yeah, I mean, what really concerns me here is that this was a march that was organised by Tommy Robinson, and we know what his track record is like. He's talking about Islam as being a religion of violence. He's got, I was doing a bit of reading this morning, he's called Islam fascist. He said the Quran is a violent and cursed book. He's described Muslim babies as time bombs. He said some really awful things that I think we'd all condemn, and I think everybody at home would say it's horrible. But now he is taking people who are worried about other things. They may have legitimate concerns about immigration, they may have legitimate concerns about the cost of living, and he's taking them on his marches. And so I'd say, if you're going on this kind of march, just know who is running this and know what he has said.
Well, I've had a couple of people message me saying that they're not really that fussed about Tommy Robinson, but they went on the march because of the wider issues that we've discussed. With Tommy Robinson, he's a divisive figure, he's got a criminal past. But are you not killing the messenger? Because a lot of the key headlines that he is highlighting are a concern to arguably millions of people in this country.
But that's how the far right works. People like Tommy Robinson will start with reasonable messages, and there are a lot of people who would have gone on that march yesterday for reasonable reasons. But that's how it begins. Once you start going on a march by Tommy Robinson, who knows where that ends? And that's what's really concerning. And that's why I say, if you are going on a march like that, be comfortable with the people at the top, be comfortable with the people speaking, and be happy to be able to stand alongside them for whatever they believe.
But won't most of those people vote reform when it comes to it?
I don't know. But
what do you think? Who will yesterday's protesters be voting for in 4 years' time?
I think most of them will be Reform supporters. I did notice that on the live stream on Tommy Robinson's Twitter, it was had the Advance UK logo on the top. I don't know if, I presume Ben Habib gave them some money to do that, and he spoke on stage and tried to use that as a bit of an advertising platform. But I think it is only really a few people on the fringes who will vote for that party. I did go down to the march that he did in July last year, where he infamously showed the documentary and then got put in prison for it. And they did do a hands up of who here voted Tory, who here voted Labour, who here voted for Reform. Tories and Labour, there wasn't a single hand up, and pretty much everyone was putting their hands up for Reform. And as you said, and as I said, I think the vast majority of people who went there are maybe not like hardline Tommy Robinson fanatics, but a lot of people went along who maybe don't hate Tommy Robinson, but also they're just people who don't really care too much about him, but just cared about the wider issues like immigration and what that Reform are talking about.
Briefly then, is the landing spot here it's the right cause with the wrong figurehead in Robinson?
I think that Tommy is right about a lot of things. I think he's been right to talk about the grooming gangs and whatnot, but I think that the way that he expresses his concerns in a quite sort of shouty, sweary, inflammatory way is not going to bring people together, and is not going to convince people to join him who are, say, more towards the middle, more on the margin, thinking about, should I be concerned about these issues? Should I have concerns about some parts of Islam? I think the way he does it can be quite inflammatory, and so I don't think he's the best figurehead for it.
Okay, well,
there's
listen,
a lot of truth to some things that he says.
I want to ask you, were you at the march yesterday? Was it the manifestation of the far right? Why did you go? And what do you think of Tommy Robinson? Is he a patriotic hero or a dangerous thug? It's all about opinions, and I want yours, because I don't know. So please educate me. 03444 499 1000. I've got a fantastic political panel who are back in two shakes of a lamb's tail. The 100, 200, 300,000 people, were they the tip of the iceberg? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, listen, Sebastian Salek, if there is anger out there represented and manifested in that march yesterday, notwithstanding the leadership of that march and the organisers, then we can agree that a good number of people, peace-loving, who are not happy about the direction of travel, How do we fix that, and who's going to fix it? Who's going to address these issues so that these marches don't need to happen?
Such a big question, isn't it? And
you know what we need? We need a Labour government, actually.
Well, it falls at the top, doesn't it? It's on Keir Starmer, it's on Rachel Reeves to turn this around. It is the hardest job, isn't it? To take what we got after 14 years and turn that into something prosperous. How do we get there? I don't really know, but it's got to be a focus on working people. I mean, I like to see the increase in workers' rights that we're seeing for people, the increase in renters' rights. These are people who have a really difficult time. Most people, most people around us certainly rent, and they can be thrown out of their home for any reason.
And even the Tories were considering those rental reforms themselves, weren't they?
They were considering it, but they bottled it in the end. They never went through, and part of the reason was that there were too many landlords on the Tory benches and they were blocking it behind the scenes, which is a real shame. So I'm pleased to see that happening. Similarly with workers' rights, with parents as well. You've got breakfast clubs, you've got childcare, you've got limits on how many school uniform items can be branded. It's little things like that that add up, and that crucially allow parents to go away and work. If you can send your child to a breakfast club, that's an extra half hour in the day. You've got to go to work, earn money, pay your taxes, and that ultimately makes the country richer. So I think it's a patchwork of little solutions like that.
As you know, we're maxed out on the nation's credit card, which is definitely a legacy of the Conservatives, and the COVID reaction, the Ukraine war, inflation, all of those things. But now we do have this new Labour government, and yes, the Tories were terrible, but Labour are making things worse, aren't they? Provably, they're making things worse. The economy is shrinking, illegal immigration is up, and inflation's up, and even unemployment is making an unwelcome return. I mean, these are not the headlines you want after a year in power, are they?
So let's be clear, the economy isn't necessarily shrinking, it's just not growing as quickly as we would want it to.
0%, right. So that, July. We had 0% growth in July.
Yes, but if you look at the 3 months rolling, which is what the ONS is saying to do and what economists say to do, there is some growth there. So it's not. I'm not saying it's fantastic.
0.3%?
Well, that's it. It's not brilliant.
Which is half what it was a year ago.
But it is there. Just to correct that point, it's not the hill I'll die on. But yeah, no, there is growth to be found, and it is the only way forward. But the problem is falling into the trap of believing that
you
any
must
of
be
this
very
is easy.
disappointed in Rachel Reeves. Because Labour government exists to invest in public services and to support the poorest in our society, and there's no firepower to do that without a growing economy.
That's true, and we do need the economy to grow. The problem is you can't come in and expect that everything is suddenly going to change just because of the people.
It'd be nice if it didn't get worse, though, wouldn't it?
True, but there are so many external factors as well. You've got the US, you've got Trump, who's the least predictable man on the planet, running one of the biggest economies on the planet. So there are all of these external factors as well that nobody, not least Rachel Reeves, can control. So it's not easy, and I think we need to give them time. This, thankfully, is a 5-year term.
So you think Rachel's going to turn this ship around?
I think they're in a doom loop now. So I think they did things the wrong way round. They promised the world in their manifesto, and they were keen to throw money at the NHS, net zero, and all of these things. And I do think that the NHS and various different defence and all sorts needs investment. But what they needed to do was to manage expectations and say, we need to get the economy growing first, increase tax receipts via growth rather than actually hiking tax rates. And then once we've got some more money coming in the coffers, then we can maybe offer doctors a pay rise or invest some more money in various different areas. But what we've got now is this doom loop where they've spent a bunch of money, then they've realised that there's not enough money, we need to raise taxes. They raise taxes, but then the economy then doesn't grow as much as expected, so the expected tax revenue goes down, and then they go, oh gosh, we've now got another 40 billion black hole that we need to fill, so we need to raise taxes even more, and we're just in this doom loop where things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And also a big problem that we have got with our economy is I think the highest of any country, the percentage of our debt where the service payments is indexed to inflation. And what Rachel Reeves did with the national insurance hikes, the minimum wage hikes, minimum wage hike was well intentioned and whatnot, is that it's led to inflation creeping up, which means that our payments for servicing our debt are now going up and up and up. So we need even more money, and now they're clutching at straws, figuring out where on earth can we raise taxes. They thought that they could come in and just do some big taxes on the rich and that would sort the situation out, but then, as anyone with common sense would have predicted, they started all fleeing to places like Dubai.
Do you not think the legacy, I mean, you mentioned, the inheritance from the Conservatives, which I think is very true. Some, concerns regarding America's trade policy and the tariffs. I get that. But surely all roads lead to Rachel Reeves' October budget and the national insurance tax rate on employers.
Yeah, and do you know what? I wouldn't want to be Rachel Reeves right now. I would challenge you slightly there, Chloe, on what the Labour Party should have done, because you look at them when they came into office and it would be so easy to say, yes, let's just focus on growth. But remember where we were in July last year. The NHS was on its knees, doctors were striking, train drivers were striking, you couldn't get anywhere. The country was broken. We all agreed that, and that's why they got that massive majority. It was an outpouring of angst, really. And that had to be fixed first. So the money had to go into the NHS, those strikes had to be resolved before anything could happen. That said, now the focus has to be on growth. It doesn't happen in a quarter. It never does in any country, unless something really remarkable has happened, like we've just come out of COVID. So let's not be unreasonable in our expectations either. But let's look at this in yearly chunks and see how progress goes there. But you're right, to come back to the budget, that is going to be really hard. There are so many ways that Labour is stuck. There are so many dead ends that the Treasury is going to have to find its way out of. And I'm an optimist. I want the best for this country, so I'm going to go in there without trying to be downbeat, without trying to talk down our country, and see what they come out with on that day in November. But until then, there's nothing we can do but speculate.
It isn't a headache for Labour that they said they wouldn't raise income tax, VAT and national insurance, and that they're running out of road now when it comes to their fiscal position?
It's going to be really, really hard for them not to raise income tax. And I think, you know, that moment where we saw Rachel Reeves crying on the front benches, I know they said it was for a personal matter, but even if it was, I think we can all agree that she probably in that moment felt hopeless after that bill, the welfare bill, that was supposed to knock 5 billion quid off of the ballooning welfare budget that is expected to go up to, some estimates say, 100 billion pounds a year. You couldn't even shave 5 billion quid off that. That showed that even with the big majority that Labour has, it's going to be damn difficult for them to make any savings anywhere. The public is saying, there's been some polling out, that they would much prefer spending cuts to more tax hikes. But it just seems in Parliament, even though they've got this big majority, that they are going to have quite a storm from the backbenchers. I know the whip removed some people, but I'm to kind of send a message that you need to behave, but I'm not sure that that's going to cut it.
Sebastian, you're an optimist, so cheer us up on this Sunday morning. When are things going to get better? And I'll put the date in the diary. I've got my Google Calendar here.
I wish my clairvoyance were that reliable.
Is it my birthday? March the 17th, 2026. Is that when inflation will be 2%? Growth is at, you know, perhaps sort of, you know, 1.5%, 2% per year.
Fingers crossed for some green shoots by then. Do you know what? I know that Reeves is bound by all sorts of straitjackets, some of her own making.
Were they a mistake, by the way? The manifesto pledge, was that a mistake?
Well, this is what I'll address. I'm not necessarily saying she should break her manifesto pledge, but I do think that, in general, chancellors should have the freedom to move with the times and to react to the present. So if that means breaking those promises, then so be it.
So
if that's in the national interest,
chancellors should have the freedom to break manifesto promises.
If it's in the national
then
interest.
What's the value of a manifesto
because
promise?
time moves, the economy moves, and you have to react with what's going on today, not what was happening in spring last year when the manifesto was written.
I'll sit in the middle of you two on this, and I will say that when you come in with a manifesto, inevitably unpredictable things happen, and you need to be flexible to some degree. And so it is normal that any government is going to break some sort of manifesto pledges, but what Labour did is, I think they put out a whole load of lies in their manifesto. They promised the world, they acted as though money grows on trees and that they could fix the country in a heartbeat.
Also, nothing unexpected has happened. I mean, there are no circumstances by which Rachel Reeves could justify
Trump's been elected.
Well, Trump's been elected.
And he's come in with unprecedented sudden tariffs.
So you're blaming Donald Trump?
No. I'm just refuting your point that nothing has happened. Something very significant
that's trivial.
has happened.
That's trivial.
The tariffs are trivial.
Yeah, because we've just struck a trade deal with him, and it's 10% tariffs for the foreseeable future, which is less than the EU are paying.
Less than the EU,
great
but
deal.
It's still come out of nowhere for us.
And that was organised in. That was done in a matter of weeks.
But remember that a lot of this is global. The inflation picture is global. Other countries are struggling as well. We're seeing their yields go up. So the UK is not isolated in many of these challenges. And that's just the way the economy works. We're so
the cost of government debt is the highest in the G7, which it wasn't under Rishi Sunak.
It's now more expensive than Greece for us to borrow.
But listen, the great thing about the show, it's all about opinions. Fantastic to hear Sebastian and Chloe debate these things, and we'll do more next. And I've got a big question for you, which is, could Peter Mandelson bring down Sir Keir Starmer?
That is one of the things that will cause the polls to tighten in a few years as we get closer to a general election. Is people, if the NHS is driven up the agenda, that will help Labour out. But if they can't even back this up with any type of meaningful improvements in the NHS and in the waiting list data, they're getting in real trouble. There's a little bit of a caveat here that these do go up and down. Winter's coming, waiting lists generally go up then. But again, as you said, he promised real significant progress on this. And whether or not it's a little blip, there still is nothing meaningful happened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Front page of today's Sunday Telegraph. The Prime Minister hired Peter Mandelson without proper checks. Sir Keir Starmer appointed Lord Mandelson as ambassador to the United States without fully vetting his links to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Number 10 confirmed the Labour grandee's elevation to the role before formal security checks on him had begun. At the time of December's announcement, he'd only been subject to light questioning on his relationship with the billionaire. And Chloe Dobbs, I mean, the cleaners at number 10 are subject to more rigorous security checks than the ambassador to the United States.
Look, what clearly happened here is they were, when the Labour government came in, they were quite nervous about what their relationship with Trump was going to be like, especially when you've got people, including Keir Starmer himself, others like David Lammy and whatnot, had said quite harsh things about Donald Trump in the past. They wanted to make sure they had a good relationship with what is one of the most powerful countries in the world. So they thought, we better get someone who is experienced. And Mandelson, to his credit, has, for what he has done in office, seldom been criticised. And so it seems to me like they most likely knew, and they were given this dossier about his relationship with Epstein, but they just thought, look, we really need to make sure we've got a good ambassador, so we'll just brush that over and hope it doesn't come out of the woodwork later. But people in the, Labour MPs and ministers are thinking, how on earth did you think this was never going to come out of the woodwork? I mean, what's been very clear with this Labour government so far is that they've been terrible at comms and PR. They've got into so many scandals. It seems like we have a new one every single day, and they just don't really have great judgment about how things are going to look in the press when they do things, and very clearly in this case.
Yes, I mean, Sebastian, the smoking gun appears to be that Sir Keir Starmer knew that Peter Mandelson maintained his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein following his conviction for child sex trafficking. That's a problem, and surprising from an experienced lawyer like Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was widely reported beforehand. It's interesting, there's just so much lack of clarity in what I'm reading in the papers today. I can't piece it all together. I can't work out who knew what and when, and that makes it really hard to comment on this. What is important, really, is that Mandelson has gone. And I'm really pleased to see that. I'm really pleased that he was sacked. He didn't get a chance to resign. He was sacked, and that showed some strength from Starmer.
First of all, why did it take Starmer so long to sack him, and why did Starmer defend him in the House of Commons before sacking him?
Yeah, and again, this goes back to the timeline of what exactly was going on here. There are multiple timelines flying around. I mean, look, could he have sacked him a few hours earlier? Probably.
A few days earlier?
Probably. Would it matter in a few days' time? I don't think so at all. We moved on. The fact is, he's gone.
What about Starmer's judgment in giving this guy the job in the first place, representing the United Kingdom in America, and yet with the Epstein links? Surely that's enough to make you think we're not going to appoint this guy.
Well, look, Trump, the president of the US, also has Epstein links, and I'm not defending that for 1 second, but there is an extent to which in the US, at the very top, that is somewhat normalised. And as Chloe said, he's very well thought of in the US, and Labour did need a very strong figure to go in. And again, this isn't defending his appointment. We can all say with the benefit of hindsight that it was a mistake, but you can see the thinking, you can see the reasoning why he was appointed last year and why they thought it reasonable to take that risk.
There's a pattern emerging. We've got a Deputy Prime Minister who was responsible for housing, who didn't pay stamp duty. or a sufficient amount. We've got a homelessness minister who evicted tenants before hiking the rent, and you've got a transport minister who stole a mobile phone. I mean, this is an
anti-corruption minister who ends up getting investigated by Bangladesh for corruption.
It's a good point.
And the list goes on.
It's in a game of cards. That would be like a flush, wouldn't it, or something? I don't play cards. But this is unfortunately a trend, and this is not the grown-ups back in charge, is it?
Well, do you know what I'm taking from this? Is that every time somebody has done something wrong within the government, they are very quick to resign. And I'm really pleased to see that, because that wasn't what we saw under the previous government. Think about Priti Patel, when she broke the ministerial code for bullying civil servants. Boris Johnson defended her, he kept her on. When Afghanistan was falling, the current Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, was on holiday in Greece somewhere, and he didn't move, he didn't go anywhere. And he clung onto his job as well. So, yes, people are making mistakes, but they're also taking the blame and they're doing the right thing and going.
Sebastian, are you disappointed by this Labour government, considering the fact that everything's got worse since they won?
I don't think everything has got worse, and I think we have to get used to thinking of this as a long-term project. There is no government on earth that could have turned around this country in a year, given the state that we're in. I'm so pleased that this is a 5-year term. It's going to take at least 5 years to sort things out.
Did people know that things would get worse before they allegedly get better? I mean, did they know that inflation would go up? Did they know that unemployment would rise? Did they know that investment would drop? Did they know that growth would disappear?
I don't think it's fair to expect anybody to predict any of that, but the reality is we have...
Well, if Rachel Reeves had said that's what's going to happen, but things are going to get worse before they get better, well, then they might not have won.
But Rachel Reeves didn't know that either. None of us know what's going to happen to the economy, because it is so relevant.
Nice if the
on
Chancellor
so many
knew what was
factors.
going to happen to the economy.
The Chancellor, much as we wish she might, also cannot see the future. If she could, we'd be in a very different position, so it's unreasonable to expect that. But what I can point to is the really positive, life-changing bills going through Parliament on renters' rights, on workers' rights, on all sorts of areas.
None of that's going to produce growth, which is really
no, but it's about making people's lives
goal.
better. It's about giving them more empowerment throughout their lives, whether it's their home, whether it's their work, whether it's their family life, to be able to live a stronger life, which currently these are rights they don't have. I keep coming back to it because it's so important. If you are a renter in this country, you can be thrown out of your home for no reason. If you've got children in the local school, that can be a horrendous upheaval of your life. It makes so much sense to focus on things like that empower ordinary people.
There you go. Labour are playing the long game, and things will be, by the time of the next election, they'll be proved right, Chloe Dobbs.
Look, Labour, they said whatever they needed to say to get elected, and consequently, the way they did their messaging, they made it out as though things were going to be turned around in a heartbeat. Now, I'm smart enough to know that it does take more than 5 minutes to turn the country around, but I would have liked to have seen, after 1 year, at least a bit of progress, rather than things getting worse. There are a few good things that they have done, but I would say on the whole, things have gotten worse, and on the issues that matter most to people. I mean, for example, on illegal migration, which people have been crying out for a solution to, we have now got the number of arrivals this year from the start of the year is now 40% higher than it was a year ago, which is just absolutely shocking, and they haven't shown any tenacity on that issue or many other issues for that matter.
There's a lot of progress on that. The backlog has come down. Enforced removals has gone up. Asylum hotel costs has come down. It's a mixed picture. Yes, we have a lot of people coming to this country to seek asylum, more so than many people would like, but there are a lot of things that have gone in the right direction this year, and we have to give them credit for that.
Listen, I want to give both of my guests credit because I really enjoyed our conversation. My thanks to Sebastian Salek, who's a Labour councillor, and the Conservative commentator Chloe Dobbs. I'm going to get to your calls and opinions next. We're going to have a look at Keir Starmer. Is he running out of road as Prime Minister? I'll be asking politics legend Edwina Currie next.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. it is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr.
are not
President, Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk, the home of common sense. A big hour coming up. Thousands of people marched in the capital yesterday, based around a message of patriotism. Now, Conservative numbers suggest upwards of 150,000 people attended. Many suggest it's closer to 500,000, but with 25 arrests, was this the quiet expression of people power? And will the political establishment listen? Things are getting worse for Sir Keir Starmer, who, it's been revealed, hired Peter Mandelson as UK ambassador to Washington without proper checks, casting significant doubt on the PM's competence and judgment. Well, that's priced in by now, isn't it? And Rachel Reeves' planned rises in taxes will cost more than they raise, says the world's leading economics expert. Just how broke is Britain? And the first Channel migrants are to be deported on flights back to France as early as tomorrow under Sir Keir Starmer, as he starts his one-in, one-out deal with France. Will it work? Are you convinced? Is this the turning point in the battle against illegal immigration, or yet another false dawn and broken promise? And with me in just a few minutes' time is someone that has witnessed plenty of political crises, and she's been quite often at first hand to experience it. It's, of course, Edwina Currie, former Conservative government minister, live on the show in a few minutes' time to give us an overview on where British politics is heading. And I'll have a big question for her. Yesterday's march, 100,000 people, 500,000, however many, is that the tip of the iceberg? But of course, we know that Sir Keir Starmer's efforts to reboot his ailing premiership rather ran aground with the departure of his deputy, Angela Rayner. And here is Sir Keir Starmer optimistically announcing phase 2 of his stint at number 10.
Summer's definitely over, and this morning we've got all the number 10 staff together and talked through what phase 2 of the government is going to look like and feel like. So we go into phase 2, 1st of September 2025, in good spirits, confident and with conviction.
Yikes! I can't wait for phase 3, then phase 4, then phase 5. He also said summer's over. I think he's right. I think, Jack Elson, political editor of the Sun newspaper, we're heading for an autumn and winter of discontent.
Yeah, morning, Mark. The summer's over, the honeymoon's over, if he ever had a honeymoon, because, you know, this week I think it's probably been the worst one in a pretty contested field in his premiership so far. Things unravelled very quickly when Keir Starmer became Prime Minister and haven't really managed to recover. You know, losing 2 of his government figures in the space of a week, more than careless, and questions are really piling up now. I mean, Peter Mandelson, I think it is just so damaging, the fact that we are just having this drip of revelations coming out. And I think that, you know, often is what it is like the perceived cover-up, which actually is almost worse than the scandal itself sometimes. And the fact that a lot of us journalists, a lot of the public don't feel we're getting the full facts from Number 10 at the moment about what Keir Starmer knew when, I think is just going to make this saga run and run. You know, the Business Secretary, Peter Kyle, has been out on the round this morning and seems unable to really answer some of the latest disclosures in the Sunday Times, that the Propriety and Ethics team handed this report to Keir Starmer before he appointed Peter Mandelson. Whether or not Keir Starmer's advisors told him about the full extent of the relationship, whether or not they knew the full extent of the relationship, I think actually almost, you know, is the fundamental question here. But even if they didn't tell Keir Starmer should have been politically savvy enough to be to want to seek out the answers for himself. You know, Peter Mandelson is not a career civil servant diplomat with an unblemished record. He is someone who was known to have links with Jeffrey Epstein. He was twice fired from government under Tony Blair. He seems to have this almost you know, moth-like attraction to quite dodgy political, dodgy, you know, powerful figures in life. And so, you know, it's obviously a terrible scandal for the government. It looks awful, losing 2 people in the space of a week. And Keir Starmer will try and turn it around this week with the state visit. Although, you know, I think it's now incumbent on Keir Starmer to probably get all the facts in the open over the next few days, because what will be even more damaging is standing at that press conference on Thursday with Donald Trump, someone who else has had links to Jeffrey Epstein, and be bombarded with a barrage of questions all about his sacked US ambassador and his relationship with a paedophile. So, yeah, it's really not good at the moment.
Most definitely. Why does the Mandelson story matter to my viewers and listeners, and why does it matter? Why is it important for your readers of The Sun?
It matters because it goes to the heart of the PM's judgment in appointing him in the first place. Our relationship with America is the most important on the planet. Peter Mandelson clearly had some unique abilities in being able to charm Donald Trump. But the wider question and the wider scandal which matters is that the Prime Minister knowingly appointed a man who was not only twice sacked from cabinet, but held long-standing links with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Then you go to the question about what the Prime Minister knew about Mandelson's continued relationship with Epstein after the conviction. My colleague Harry Cole in The Sun this week revealed some pretty extraordinary emails with Mandelson telling Jeffrey Epstein that he should fight his conviction for soliciting a minor, saying, "Your real friends love you and will stand by you." Pretty ghoulish stuff. Did the Prime Minister know anything about Peter Mandelson's continued relationship with Jeffrey Epstein when he appointed him, when he dithered in sacking him? Because let's not forget, the Prime Minister on Wednesday at the dispatch box of the House of Commons came out with a full-throated backing of Peter Mandelson. Bloomberg News, other outlets had already contacted Peter Mandelson at that point with these revelations. The Foreign Office seemed to be aware. So why on earth was the Prime Minister not made aware? And it just goes to the heart of the PM's judgment, because let's not forget, your viewers, my readers, will remember in opposition, Keir Starmer, at the faintest whiff of a Tory scandal, was straight out there in front of the media, telling various ministers to resign, saying that the Tories had lost the plot. And what we have seen under his government is a succession of ministers forced to resign in scandals, whether that is Corruption Minister Tulip Siddiq embroiled in the corruption scandal, whether that's Lou Haig, the old transport secretary, resigning over fraud, Rushanara Ali kicking out people tenants in her flat when she was legislating to ban those actions itself. Angela Rayner, obviously, with her stamp duty debacle. And I think that most people would just know that if the shoe was on the other foot and we were back in the world of Labour in opposition, the Tories were in power, they will be calling for recriminations, and I think that is why I think people should be rightly appalled at what is going on. And listen, all governments throughout history have their fair share of scandals. Keir Starmer would say that he acts decisively when confronted with them, and that is the main point he is trying to make now. His allies are clinging on to the fact that where Tories sometimes try to protect their fall guys, actually Keir Starmer acts. I think that has been called into question this week because it was clearly known before he went out on Wednesday that these allegations about Peter Mandelson were piling up. Either he knew about it and went to the House of Commons and didn't tell the truth, or his advisors or people in the Foreign Office who are aware of these allegations did not give him the full information. But it's incumbent on the Prime Minister, and the buck stuck to the top, to actually seek out the answers to these questions, which are just so fundamental.
They are indeed fundamental. It's interesting that Peter Kyle, the business secretary, has been on television this morning saying Peter Mandelson was worth the risk. Did he not hear the adage that if you're in a hole, stop digging? But what about this allegations of a row between Sir Keir Starmer and his chief advisor, Morgan McSweeney, his head of staff? You're supposed to be protecting me. It's allegedly what the PM said to his man in charge at Number 10. There's clearly going to be tensions now within that relationship, and there's no love lost between the Labour Parliamentary Party and Morgan McSweeney, is there?
Yeah, you're right. So I think many people often see Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney's political fates as entwined. They will rise together and probably fall together as well if it comes down to it. Morgan McSweeney, obviously hugely credited and still has a lot of goodwill amongst his fiercely loyal allies inside Number 10 for masterminding that general election victory, changing the Labour Party to a point where they were, a rabble, left-wing rabble led by Corbyn, mired in all sorts of anti-Semitism scandals, to a party which could win government. And so Keir Starmer still trusts him pretty closely. But the problem is now, you're right, is that Morgan McSweeney's always been a bit of a political street fighter and has not been afraid to make enemies on the soft left of the party in terms of dragging Labour to the position where he thinks they can win an election. The problem now is that some of his chickens will come home to roost, and that actually many people who feel they have been sidelined by the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff will now be the ones who try and twist the knife in when they are both at their most vulnerable. Often in politics, battle lines are drawn, and you have to make a few enemies along the way if you want to get things done. But it does mean that when you are exposed in a way which Downing Street are now, they don't have many friends in the parliamentary party, or not as enough friends as they might like to be able to count on. It's probably why we saw that reshuffle last week. A big shake-up, especially of the junior ranks, people who they want to keep on side, give them a little bauble, give them a ministerial red box so they won't cause trouble on the back benches. The problem is there's not enough of them to go around. And so, yes, the parliamentary party, while lots of them are still loyal to Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney, there are knives out now among many of them, because there is a feeling that, one, they are mired in all sorts of scandals, but two, you might even be able to excuse this, or not excuse it, but it would be better if it was in the context of we're doing great in the polls, we're delivering all of our policies, all of our pledges are coming to roost. The problem is they're tanking in the polls, and there's a bit of a sense of drift.
There most definitely is. Before I let you go, a couple of quick ones, if I may, Jack. First of all, congratulations on very even-handed commentary in today's Sun on Sunday on the march yesterday, Unite the Kingdom, led by Tommy Robinson. Now, it's clear that Tommy Robinson is a divisive figure and a controversial figure with a criminal past. But what cannot be denied, and that's certainly the flavour of today's reporting in the Sun on Sunday, what cannot be denied is widespread public anger about the direction of this country, and that's not limited to a few cranks on a march.
Yes, definitely. And I think that what a lot of people in the march actually went out there for was free speech, British values and the rest of it. And actually, Well, I think a lot of people in the march, if you judge it by the reporting, and I wasn't out there myself, but it seemed that people not necessarily even agreed or supported the people at the front of the march, you know, the likes of Tommy Robinson, the likes of Lawrence Fox and Katie Hopkins, but they went out there because they wanted to send a very strong message to the government that they feel in many ways that British values are being eroded, whether that was the, you know, pretty disgraceful arrest of Graham Linehan at an airport, whether that is, the mass migration into this country, which nobody really asked for, and which is causing a massive strain on cultural tensions and public services. I think that a lot of people just felt that actually, you know, this is the only way now of making their voices being heard, because time and again, people have asked for things at the ballot box, whether that is, you know, lower taxes, better public services, less migration, and actually every single time they don't get it. And so, you know, often direct democracy in its purest form is people just getting out into the street and making their voices being heard. And, you know, people did that in their tens of thousands yesterday.
Well, they did indeed, and I've had callers to the show who were on the march, and let me assure you, and people messaging the show, cranks and far-right thugs, they are not. So, Jack, looking forward to more of the coverage of this growing crisis for Keir Starmer in the days ahead. King Charles is unhappy with the Prime Minister at this stage because, of course, the Mandelson drama is a distraction for the visit of President Donald Trump, which should have been a good news story for Keir Starmer, given the two men get on quite well, but could now backfire.
Yeah, totally. It's a bit of a shame, really, because I think the one thing Keir Starmer does have in his arsenal to sort of show to the public is this good relationship with Donald Trump. He's giving him a second state visit. Donald Trump's flying in, I think, on Tuesday night. And there's going to be a sort of a few days of pomp and pageantry. But as I said before, any sort of bonhomie amongst the two men could be seriously derailed at the prospect of a press conference where Keir Starmer and Donald Trump are both asked about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Absolutely the last thing on their list they want to be talking about right now. They want to be hamming up new deals on tech, on trade, investment, and the rest of it. However, it looks like at the moment that it seriously could be overshadowed by this Mandelson and Epstein drama. And, you know, Donald Trump is not someone, I think, to engage in the sort of diplomatic niceties at a press conference, and can imagine getting pretty irate if challenged about this kind of stuff. And so it's going to be quite awkward for both men if that happens. And that's why I think it's probably incumbent on Keir Starmer to use the next few days to get everything out in the open, to try and contain this growing saga so that it doesn't overshadow what should be a good week for the Prime Minister.
Most definitely, Jack. Look forward to reading The Sun's coverage of what's going to be a huge political week. My thanks there to the political editor of The Sun newspaper, Jack Elsom. Next up, just how long has Keir Starmer got? How many more crises can he manage before he is evicted from number 10? I'll be asking someone that has been very close to the government machine in the 1980s and the 90s. That is Edwina Currie. She's next.
one thing. We're just lurching from one crisis to another. And as I've just mentioned, Mandelson should never have been appointed, as you've just stated. It was known about his relationship, about him staying in the flats. The recent revelations that we've heard this week are unacceptable. And when you've got party loyalists coming out and defending the indefensible, I think is unacceptable.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Simon's not happy. The Prime Minister, says Simon, said he's country before party, but everything we've seen so far from this government in this PM is totally against what the British people want for their country. They're bringing in other people to this country that hate Britain. And how come that it's very basic form... Oh, sorry, there's a little bit of a typo there. But Simon really not happy about the direction of travel in the country. And this from Andrew. The only reason the one-in, one-out deal is starting now is because the weather will get worse and he'll be able to claim crossings have gone down and therefore his scheme is working. I'll get to more of your messages and calls before the end of the hour. But just how much trouble is Keir Starmer in as Prime Minister? Someone that's no stranger to political drama, is someone that's had a ringside seat for several administrations in the course of the history of this country. Ex-Conservative Government Minister Edwina Currie. Hello, Edwina.
Good morning, Mark. Nice to see you at this time of the day.
It is. I'm not a morning person, but we'll gloss over that. We've got you to do the heavy lifting now intellectually, OK?
OK, that's fine with me.
Now, Edwina, because of course you did beat me on Mastermind, but we'll gloss over that. Can I ask you about Keir Starmer? I mean, you will recognise a Prime Minister under pressure. How much trouble is he in, do you think?
Well, he's in a surprising amount of trouble, and a lot of it is of his own making. He did not actually have to appoint Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the US. He had to sack a very good ambassador who's pretty cross with him. And he, as a result, has put somebody in who is known to be a schmoozer, is known to be a networker, is known to be actually very good at getting people to agree with each other and get deals. That was his purpose. On the other hand, is also known to have a really kind of casual attitude to the morality of friendship, of behaviour, of what he does behind the scenes, and can be and Mandelson can also be extremely difficult if you are in the media and you're trying to probe what he's been up to. Let me tell you a little story about my dealings with Mandelson, if I may. So we go back to when I used to be a presenter myself back in the days for the BBC, and we had a story about Mandelson being gay. Now, as you know, I'm very friendly with gays. I'm very relaxed about it.
You are. You're a big social liberal, aren't you, Edwina?
Well, that's right. I'm an economic conservative and a social liberal, always have been. And so we wanted to talk about it. We had an official letter from the department that Mandelson was in charge of that went to somebody high up in the BBC in writing saying, under no circumstances are you to talk about my personal life. And I thought, why not? Why not? Why
Correct.
Wouldn't you want to be a poster boy for something, advanced and liberal and progressive like that? But no, he took a really very hoity-toity attitude. And I suspect that's exactly what's come into play again this time. Leopards and spots come to mind, Mark, that he's been good at his job, but not very good at handling the personal life at all. And absolutely dreadful when it comes to handling any inquiries about it. Meanwhile, Starmer, who I think basically is a decent but rather bumbling idiot, has failed totally to deal with that or indeed to deal with the Angela Rayner resignation stroke sacking of the week before. Tells you an awful lot, doesn't it?
It does. A decent but bumbling idiot is probably the politest thing you can say at the moment, and one of the more positive headlines about the Prime Minister. Clearly issues around his judgment. Can he turn this ship around? Can the man recalibrate his own political identity and make this work?
Well, the way you turn things around is to have some success. And genuine success, not just stuff that you're putting out little videos about saying, oh, we've done this, oh, we've done that, you know, oh, we've built lots more houses. No, you haven't. You're building fewer houses. Oh, we've repatriated lots of immigrants. Pardon me? No, we've had more people coming and fewer people leaving. Oh, we're doing a great job in getting the economy to grow. Flat as a pancake.
Yeah.
If you have success, then you have an opportunity of turning things around. That's what happened in Margaret Thatcher's first term, for example, when things seemed to be flatlining, and then suddenly we had the Falklands and she had a huge success on her hands. And the same thing in her second term when she was able to see off the miners. And from there onwards, she could do no wrong, even when she did do wrong. I don't think Starmer has it in him to do that kind of turnaround. And events are not being kind to him. He might have anticipated this rather better to begin with. He might, for example, have had a more cheerful Chancellor. He might have decided that actually you're going to have to cut spending rather than increase taxes, because what do increased taxes do, Mark? They flatten growth. Oh, my goodness. But no, he didn't have that kind of bandwidth to be able, I think, to understand any of that.
And what's puzzling, Edwina, is that this is a Prime Minister that presides over an electoral mandate and a large majority in the House of Commons, and yet he seems to govern as somebody responsible for a hung parliament, because his own backbenchers won't support the policies that he needs to introduce for the country, particularly to reduce public spending.
Well, I think the mindset that he and some of his senior people are in is that they're still fighting the last election. They think they're fighting the Tories. They're not fighting the Tories. They won a huge majority. They should have come in with a programme ready, with legislation ready, for example, to reform the planning laws. They should have been able to have a wonderful 100 first days. They should have been able to crack on. But they had none of that vision. They had none of that planning. They had none of that grit, really, guts to do it. It needs courage and it needs energy to do all that. And right through last autumn, we were still getting speeches from senior government ministers having a go at the Tories. The Tories are flat on their back, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm president of our local Tories. You don't have to worry about the Tories. What you do have to worry about right now is reform. And I see that there's a suggestion that Andy Burnham, who's been a very successful mayor just up the road from where I am in Greater Manchester, that he might take a possible vacancy, a safe Labour seat, and come in and then be the next leader. You know, what can go wrong with that? Well, what could go wrong with that is Reform might actually win that seat. And that's where we're actually at. To me, I see Keir Starmer kind of holding his nose when he's trying to deal with reform. He really doesn't want to see what's right there and the issues that he's going to have to tackle in a much more determined and ferocious way. And his own backbenchers, as you rightly point out, are not keen for him to do that. So he's stuck.
He most definitely is. Will this deal with France for one in, one out on illegal immigration save his skin?
Oh, absolutely not. Because you don't need to be a mathematician to figure out that that means we'd have exactly the same number of new arrivals. And it's not just the illegal ones that are exercising the public imagination. It's the overall very large numbers of legals as well. And the feeling that, you know, in recent years, especially with people overstaying their visas and disappearing into the population and bringing in their families and having spurious things like student visas when they were not really students at all, that sort of thing, that we have been taken advantage of. Now, my grandparents were immigrants, and I know that immigrants are often some of the best people. They work hard, they can see things and take opportunities that maybe the locals don't see or don't take. And they often add enormously to growth and to development and to enterprise. That's all good. What's happening at the moment is just far too many people all arriving all at the same time, with or without visas. So sending some back to France and bringing some more over to replace them is kind of no, that's not actually going to work. What you're going to have to do is arrest the illegals the moment they arrive on our beaches, put them on the planes and send them back to where they come from. But is Keir Starmer going to do that? Don't hold your breath.
And is there any prospect of the Conservatives being in the national conversation to actually address Britain's problems? Or do you think they're going to have to sit it out for a decade so the public can have time to forget their record in office?
Well, there are opportunities. All politics offers opportunities. I mean, for example, if we really are to close that increasingly large black hole in the public finances, and we do need to do that, then you're going to have to do something about cutting public spending and particularly restricting access to a lot of benefits. In order to do that, Keir Starmer is going to find he splits his party in Parliament, but the Tories could say to him very sweetly, and I can imagine Kemi doing this really rather nicely, we'll support you. If that's what you're doing, in the public interest, we will vote for that. And that's not actually what we've done. The opportunity was there, I think, briefly after the last budget, and we didn't take it. We were still in general election mode as well, fighting Labour. In the end, if we're going to have some progress in this country, there's going to have to be a little bit of cross-boundary, cross-bench support for intelligent policies that are going to take our country forward.
Most definitely. And of course, for a big chunk of your career, the Prime Minister was Margaret Thatcher. What do you think Margaret Thatcher would make of Sir Keir Starmer? Sorry, not Sir Keir Starmer. We know what she'd make of him. What would she make of Nigel Farage? Would she see him as a true Conservative, do you think, Edwina?
I think she would recognise a very, very ambitious, very skilled operator, a manipulator, a man of perhaps slightly shifty, I won't say morality, but attitudes, shall we say. So somebody who is so against Europe that he's had 2 European girlfriends, bless. Somebody who is so keen on property ownership that somehow his girlfriend managed to acquire an enormous sum of money and they didn't have to pay any tax, any additional, stamp duty,
yeah.
That kind of thing. Margaret was a woman of tremendous morality. She was brought up in a Christian household, and she took it all very, very seriously. She was in many ways a good woman, and she would have been very wary of somebody with a slightly dodgy attitude to a whole range of values that she would have held dear. The people that she surrounded herself with pretty well were people that you could trust. They were often people with backgrounds in military history in the war. They were honourable, they were decent, they were courageous. And I think she would have regarded Mr Farage with a degree of suspicion.
Although a young, and I do agree with you about that, having read several biographies of Thatcher, he wasn't the sort of personality or character that she'd necessarily be drawn to, but she'd appreciate Reform's policy platform. If Margaret Thatcher were here today, if a young Margaret Thatcher were entering politics, she'd be joining Reform UK, wouldn't she? As would a young Edwina Currie.
Well, I'm not sure about that, and I'm certainly not sure about that for myself. No, I think that's not right.
They're the true Conservatives, aren't they? They're going to manage the border, they're going to tackle law and order, they're going to curb the worst excesses of net zero.
No, they're very good at making speeches about it. It's much harder to do, Mark, when you're in government. I mean, if you stand for Parliament ever, I've told you many times you should, you will discover that actually once you're in the House of Commons, trying to balance all the different interests and the opinions and so on, and actually get a vote through, it's much, much, much harder. And then you've got to convince the public as well. No, I think we should bear this in mind as well, that Margaret Thatcher came into Parliament representing Finchley at a time when it was extremely hard for women to get into the House of Commons, and she was in Finchley because it was a very diverse environment there. Finchley in North London had a lot of Jewish people, had a lot of Hindus, a lot of Muslims, and they said to her very quietly, look, you can't bang on about being English and being British. You can't, because you're here because we voted for you. We chose you, and you need to recognise the diversity of our society. So I think she was in some very quiet areas, I think she was much more liberal-minded than the current mores allow. She would have recognised the problems. She would have recognised a snake oil salesman at 100 paces, and she would not have trusted Nigel Farage 1 inch any more than I do.
Well, of course, she did trust you. You were a Conservative MP under her premiership. And Edwina, what a lovely treat to see you again. We had a cup of tea a couple of months ago, at the same time as your brother's birthday. I do hope we catch up soon on the radio and off. Catch up soon, Edwina. Thank you. There you go. Former Government Minister Edwina Currie on fighting form as always. Shock new statistics about the real cost of illegal immigration next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Folks, listen, the conversation is flowing because we've got so much to pack into the next 20 minutes. I'll be taking your calls. Were you on the march yesterday? Why did you go? I'm going to get some eyewitness accounts. But let's have a look at some of your messages. Brad in Cambridge. Now, we had the Labour councillor Sebastian Salek on the show. And Brad says, Mark, Sebastian Salek seems to think that the millions of people who stand against the changing culture of our country are mindless idiots. The majority could not give two hoots about Tommy Robinson, and we're not being led by anyone. That's Brad in Cambridge. I'm hearing a lot of that, Thomas Godfrey, top news reporter at The Sun, that regarding that march yesterday, a lot of people are not happy with the direction of the country, and their attendance at the march is not necessarily support for Tommy Robinson per se.
No, not everyone at that march will have been a Tommy Robinson supporter. There were obviously 110,000 people there, although the Tommy Robinson camp, as it were, are claiming up to 3 million. I'm not sure that's quite correct.
I think it's more than 100k though, don't you think? I don't know if you've seen
there's
the
some of the
drone
satellite
footage.
pictures. I mean, some of the satellite pictures, if you look at that, on any scale, it's impressive to get that many people out to march about anything.
Yeah.
And so just on the satellite pictures alone, from the Waterloo roundabout, basically all the way down to Blackfriars Bridge, it's sort of packed with a sea of protesters and Union Jacks. And so to have that many people at any protest is impressive, but it is a sign as well. People are disgruntled with where the country is, and they want things to change. Obviously, within that group, there'll be people who are supporters of Tommy Robinson, but there will have been a number of people there who aren't, and just feel that they want to turn up to show their outrage and their anger at the government.
Well, definitely. We'll get to the one in, one out, which apparently starts tomorrow at great cost. You're going to have the figures. But let's get the views of Vernon in Staffordshire. Vernon, it's my understanding, welcome to the show, that you're one of those people that's not happy about the direction of the country.
No, I mean, let's state the obvious. This is a national crisis, which is only exceeded by war.
Yeah.
I say that very clearly.
Yeah.
I am an entrepreneur. I'm a wealth creator. I'm a successful businessman. And I work extremely hard. And I don't want to earn money to pay tax for this government to waste it on people who are never going to contribute to this country. Immigration was fantastic for this country when it was controlled.
Yeah.
I object to lunatics like Sebastian. I'm sorry, I have to say that word because he is of the opinion that growth comes from the public service. Let me correct him with some economics. Business creates profit. Profit pays for the public service. The first thing Labour have done is they've increased the numbers, like the Conservatives, of public servants that contribute zero to the profitability of this country.
Correct.
So the reality of it is that those that are representing the constituents need to listen to the constituents. I'm not a fan of Tommy Robinson. I'm not a racist, but I'm hugely proud of my country. I have a 12-year-old daughter that I can no longer allow to catch the bus to go to school. I have a 12-year-old daughter that can no longer go with her friends to a shopping centre. That simply, no matter what political party you're from, Mark, is not acceptable. I'm not going to allow people like Sebastian to peddle rubbish to say, oh, well, listen, all I want to happen, I want fairness in this country, and I want people here who are going to contribute. I'm not interested in their religion. I'm not interested in faith. I'm not interested in their colour. If you're a good person, you're welcome to come to this country if you want to work and if you want to contribute. So the march yesterday was about so much more, and I object profusely about being called a racist because I'm concerned about my country.
Most definitely. Vernon, lots of people are saying that they want their country back, that people who come to our shores should contribute, as you said. I mean, I've got a simple three-line whip on this, Vernon, which is they must work, OK? If you are immigrant into the country, you must work. That's obligatory. And if you don't, you're out. You must speak the language fluently, and if you don't, you're out. We'll give you time to learn, 6 months. And you must follow the rules, participate in the culture, and obey and respect the rule of law. Those three things are not happening in terms of the many that have arrived in this country.
Let me address, Mark, if I may, let me address one of those issues. Working is not just solely the responsibility of immigrants. OK, we have a culture, we have 6.2 million people who are no longer contributing to the economy because predominantly they're lazy. Let's call it for what it is. We are a lazy
No, Vernon,
nation.
it's their mental health. They've got stress, haven't they?
Yeah, I've got stress talking now today because I'm very upset. That's my mental health. Tomorrow morning I wake up at 3, I leave at 4, I drive to Carlisle to pay for those lazy people that are on benefits. I'd be a fantastic politician, Mark, because within 6 months I'd have said, right, your benefits, you've got 6 months' notice. If you are disabled, if you cannot work, this country will willingly, gratefully pay for you. Everybody else, I'm not interested in whether you've got a headache or whether you've got a bad back. You either work and contribute or you starve. And that's just the reality of it. And I've had enough. People like Sebastian need to look at themselves in the mirror. We can't look after the world. We can only look after those that contribute. You know, we need to be a nation of contributors. And then those that are unfortunate that can't work, then we'll take care of them. But this culture of staying at home is just not acceptable.
Vernon, stay with me for just a moment because I've got the news reporter of the Sun newspaper, Thomas Godfrey, there. And I think you've got plenty of readers of the Sun newspaper and viewers and listeners to this show who will be cheering what Vernon has said to the rafters.
Absolutely. Many readers of the Sun newspaper who, like Vernon, are up very early in the morning to get out to work, to grind, to put the hours in, put the shift in and feel that they're being ripped off, not only by, as Vernon says, the number of illegal entrants to this country who are put up in hotels at great expense to a taxpayer, but then, as he says, by the number of people claiming disability benefits fraudulently, the number of people, in their view at least, leeching from the government, leeching from other taxpayers. And it is right, it needs a sort of widespread crackdown almost, and it is something the government have at least started attempting to do.
Yeah.
But for many people, it feels far too easy to game the system.
Vernon.
Again, let me just answer one thing. Labour are doing nothing. Absolutely zero. So please don't fall into the trap of believing one iota of what the pathological liar of this country is doing. It's all sound bites. And they move the chairs around, and it's the same old balderdash.
Of course.
Complete lies. And it's the same from the Conservatives. They are all a bunch of pathological liars, and I wouldn't trust them with my daughter's dinner money. It's pathetic. I have to tell you, I'm so enraged.
Yeah.
Mark, you're a great orator. Love your shows. Love talk radio. And if it wasn't for talk radio, this country would be finished.
Oh, well, Vernon, that's very. Don't mind if I don't clip that. Vernon, before you go, and you're a busy man, I don't want to interrupt your Sunday either, and get back to your family, who are lucky to have you. But just briefly, you want change. You want the country to be saved. My question to you is the damage done now? Is the genie out of the bottle, or is there hope that this country can be reformed, no pun intended, and put on a better track? What do you think? Can you save Britain, or is it too late?
I could save Britain very easily. I don't trust reform. I don't trust Nigel Farage. I don't trust Richard Tice.
Why not?
A successful businessman, because I don't believe a word that they say. That's the problem, and that's very, very, very appalling for me to say that, because Richard Tice, Nigel Farage, they've done nothing wrong. I just don't trust politicians. The only politician I actually trusted was Rishi, and the reason I trusted Rishi, because he doesn't need the money. He was a self-made businessman, much like Donald Trump. All of these people who are in politics, probably 99.9% of them are out for their own gains. And if you're a politician and you leave office with more money than when you arrive, you are not fit for office. You are not a public servant. So for me, unfortunately, I think we're finished. I will keep fighting forever, but we're in a very bad place, this country. And, imagine this. I've got a beautiful 12-year-old daughter, a stunning 10-year-old son. They are no longer safe to catch the bus to go to school. How appalling. Every single politician in this country should be goddamn well ashamed of themselves. Because I blame politicians. I don't blame anybody else.
I agree.
It's just appalling.
It's the political class, isn't it?
12-year-old daughter, listen, Mark, 12-year-old daughter that cannot go to the park with her friends. She can't go on the bus. And she says to me, Daddy, why can't I do that? I said, darling, it's not safe. It's not safe to go to the park. All of you politicians who are listening to this, hang your head in shame. You have caused this absolute abomination of this once great country.
Vernon, I wish we had longer, a painful but incredibly important call with a message that will resonate across the length and breadth of this land. Vernon, I know you're a busy man, but do call me again soon, because it's important that we use this platform to have this conversation and for your voice to be heard. Can I also send my best wishes to your lovely daughter and son who have got a smashing dad? OK, more of your calls next. Don't go anywhere.
Keir Starmer was sort of adamant in his very legalistic way that all due process had been followed. We have followed the process to the last jot, dot and comma. Every I was dotted and every T was crossed. He never much seems to care about what the outcomes are, as long as the process was followed. But it's now emerging, isn't it, that quite a lot of warnings were flagged up, unsurprisingly, about Peter Mandelson, and those were overridden by the Prime Minister and perhaps by the behest of Morgan McSweeney.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you go, Thomas. So you plug yourself in. We've got Thomas Godfrey, a news reporter at The Sun. I'm going to squeeze another call in as well. But we've got a voice note from Steve on the Prime Minister's one-in, one-out policy with France, which is apparently going to start tomorrow.
Hi Mark, Steve from Portsmouth. Great show as normal.
Thank you, Steve.
Reference the one-in, one-out scheme starting tomorrow. What people are missing is that the one we take in has already had the asylum claim approved. Therefore, they're entitled to bring family members. So it's one out, and let's say they bring 5 family members, 6 in.
It's a complete scam, isn't it, Steve? Thank you for pointing out that anomaly. Speaking of anomalies, Thomas, can you tell me about some of the more sort of woke left-wing councils that don't seem to be practising what they preach?
Yes, it's the ones that want the sort of soft border control. It turns out actually have less migrants and fewer asylum seekers in their constituencies. It's shocking, I know. There's some great research in The Sun on Sunday today, published by Kate Ferguson, The Sun on Sunday's political editor, from figures obtained by Lee Anderson, the Reform MP, who I imagine will be very popular with some of your listeners. There's Home Office data for England from June found the Lib Dem-run councils hosted 122 refugees on average, while Green Party authorities hosted around 171. That's compared to 511 for Labour-run councils and Tory-run administrations, which have an average of 216. And so these parts of the world controlled by Lib Dems and Green councils, think Brighton, think various parts of the southwest, well, actually, those are the ones, it turns out, which have fewer asylum seekers in compared to areas of the country which are actually voting for Tory and Labour.
Definitely, and it's quite clear that the national conversation would be quite different if every single part of the country experienced the consequences of illegal immigration, the cost of the societal impact, issues around safety as touched on by Vernon earlier. Let's talk about yesterday's march. Daniel is in Epsom. Top of the morning, Daniel.
Hello, Mark. So I showed my face yesterday, and it's not something I would normally do. And despite being quite positive in outlook, I would say the feeling there was exasperation. I think there was a collective thought and view that for 25, 30 years, most British people have been telling successive governments that we didn't want mass immigration from the third world, and we've been ignored.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's been one of the top 3 topics on the doorstep in the last 7 general elections. We voted for successive governments who said they'd get control of it. We voted for Brexit, and it's still not happening, like 30 years later. This is a very old problem, and now, recently, we're all of us, whether you were on the left and you called someone like me a fascist or a racist 20 years ago, now those people are getting sexually harassed, they're getting their phones stolen. Everyone can see the decline and degradation now. Even if you lived in parts of the country that were unaffected before, you're not anymore. And everyone's seeing it, and everyone's coming around to a majority view. And I'm talking about second and third generation black and Asian people there yesterday as well.
Yep.
They're saying this isn't the country we moved to. The towns and cities we grew up in are toilets.
everyone can see the decline and degradation around us from mass immigration from the third world. And successive governments can't pee on our shoes anymore, Mark, and tell us it's raining. We know, we can see the truth now.
Yeah.
And people, the British majority have had enough. And I'm telling you, the Conlab Uniparty is finished. It's over. I'm telling you now, what's going to happen, the panic's really going to set in when Reform win the Welsh Senate. That's what's going to drop first.
Yeah.
Loads and loads of local elections as well. It's going to be patently obvious. I just hope this Reform government can give the British majority what we want. I want illegal immigration stopped completely. I want the 1.5 or 2 million illegals that are already here deported. I want legal immigration to be extremely low numbers, but very selective, only bringing the best, only bringing people that are going to enhance our society. You know, this is
not controversial. This is not controversial, Daniel. This is what regular people thought, 20 years ago. Daniel, I wish we had longer. Do me a favour, please give me a call again, because we need to continue this conversation. The clock is against me, but Daniel in Epsom showed his face at the march yesterday, not because he's far right, not because he's racist, OK, but because he's got common sense and he's not happy about what's happened to Britain. He's not alone. Will it all be fixed, Thomas, with Sir Keir Starmer's one in, one out with France?
It doesn't seem that way. The first flights start tomorrow. We're told they're going to be Air France flights.
Now, isn't that a posh airline?
It is a posh, a flag carrier airline for the French state.
Do you get a meal or a nice sandwich?
You do get, having been on Air France about a year ago, you do get some coffee and biscuits, which is very nice.
They probably don't trust you with wine, I wouldn't have thought.
I'm too young, I think. No. But what is actually worth pointing out about this deal is 155 asylum seekers who are in the sort of pot, as it were, to be deported, having been detained at the start of August when they crossed the Channel illegally. Yes. This is meant to be a deterrent, but if we're talking about costs to the British taxpayer, then actually one thing it is worth pointing out, just slight rudimentary research, if I wanted to book an Air France flight from Heathrow Airport tomorrow, it would cost me around £600 just to go to Paris if I specifically wanted Air France. Is that a downstream consequence of the Home Office booking up potentially dozens of seats on these commercial airlines used by the paying public, holiday makers, business people, tourists? It may well be. Actually, these deportation flights could end up, in a very weird, wacky way, driving up the cost of going abroad for regular British people. I'm sure that's not a consequence the Home Office would want. Again, this is meant to be a deterrent. Will it be that way? Well, boat crossings are still soaring, so it doesn't seem so far.
Thomas Godfrey.